We will start, we'll just need to reconvene. Tony, has Tony called in or is he on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tony, we just need to, do we need a motion to open the meeting back up, or we just continue on?
I would just say, as you started to say, Mr. Banks, just reconvening. This is the continued meeting from August 5th of 2021. And I think, is Mr. Guy going to attend remotely?
I have not seen him on yet.
Okay.
So we'll just keep an eye out. If he pops in, we will ask for record.
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate to go through again the quorum check as per the usual process, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I will just take, just call attendance. We've got Supervisor Welsh, Supervisor Tinkle, Supervisor Bank, Supervisor Gephardt in attendance. We also have District Manager. District Council is obtaining via GoToMeeting. And we've got Stephen on as well.
Stephen is supposed to be here today, and he may have got caught up in the traffic too, but I'm expecting him any minute.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Back. And just remind everybody's got the phones on mute. And if you're attending through the GoToMeeting, just make sure your phone's on, or your computer's on mute until you have an opportunity to speak. So this is the continuation of the last board meeting. Specifically, we're addressing the budget today. So we will start.
Pledge.
Yeah, we can start with we'll start with the pledge of allegiance. Everybody rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So coming out of the last board meeting, there were quite a few action items. One was we were looking at some of the Stony Brook allocations. We've got recommendations from staff on that, which looks pretty good. We also gave staff direction to go back, take a look at the current budget allocations, funding sources, and to rework the numbers once again. And again, I just want to just recognize staff for their due diligence, not only in the past couple weeks, but everything leading up to this budget season. I think each year we try to get a little better at the budgeting. We have basically asked staff to look at what needs and must-haves. This year, again, the first high water mark was pretty high because it definitely identified all the things that we felt like were critical priorities. Now we've gone through and looked at additional funding opportunities, as well as reprioritizing the things that we have. I think staff's done a pretty good job looking at what was sent over yesterday. So I guess we can just dive right in.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may, I would suggest that the agenda does talk and provide for audience public comments on agenda items, non-agenda items. So if there are any speakers registered for that or any comments that Chris has received by email, fax, or otherwise.
Thanks, Stephen.
So if we do have any individuals that are online that would like to speak, just if you can just throw your name and request in the chat, Chris will get to you. Do want to recognize Stephen Bloom is now in attendance.
Sure. We have 5 speakers that have signed up today, and the reminder there's a 5-minute limit. But first is Joe McCulcus, Stony Brook.
Joe McCulcus from Stony Brook, chair of the Stony Brook Advisory Committee. I want to thank for the opportunity just to mention 1 or 2 things. I see that there was an addition to the allocation of staff, and it had to do with Parks and Recreation and landscaping, because it's not a lot of money, and I could be okay with this, but we were told that they being the staff at Gateway here, we're going to start pulling back from looking and checking over and maintaining landscaping along our road. If that's the case, then I'm not sure why this is being added in. I can actually understand and agree with this if we get what we're supposedly paying for. And going forward, I understand that the gym is probably the primary salary that we are covering. And I do want to make an example of what I'm talking about. We really don't see him in the community. I'm not sure when he comes in. There's been no reports, no recommendations coming in on what needed to be done in our community. And the other day when we ran into Flaviat, I think Jim and Elle were with you in the car, if you recall, correct?
Yes.
You said you had been down Gateway Boulevard and driven by Stony Brook, and I know I was there with Margaret, and we both assumed that you might have come into the community. In fact, I asked you. If in fact they're going to do and oversee that asset, then probably they should have come into the community and at least have looked at it. Would you agree?
I would say so.
Yeah. If we're going to go further and going to be charged for this, then I just want to say for the record that we're going to expect that service and would appreciate whatever we can do to get it and your help. Anybody have any questions? Then I'm done.
Joe, what does it convert to the time that's assigned for Jim on landscaping for hours per week?
Now understand, this is staff time, not doing any work in terms of being physical activity, because that would be paid for in different specific line items. This is just for an oversee management staff type operation. And 5% converts into 2 hours a week, 4.3 weeks a month. That's 8.6 hours. Are we getting 8.6 hours of his time? I don't think so. Not as staff function. Not at this time. But going forward, we'll pay it. Not a problem. But we do expect then that service.
Your other deal was that the last meeting you brought this up and we put it on Chris to recalculate the numbers. Are the recalculation of the staff times now to your liking?
Yes. Yeah. The others, you did follow our recommendations. We thought they were generous. It was a double of what we paid last year. And yeah, no, we're okay with that. I have not seen in black and white our recommendations on the line items, although we were told by Laura that they had accepted our recommendations, and I have to go with that. That's all.
You mean the 004 line items?
That's correct.
And the 004 line items for salary are the percentages that we just
Correct.
agreed to.
That's the only one that was left up in the air to be worked out.
Which was basically the district manager, assistant manager changed from 5% to 0. So we pulled that out. Receptionist pulled that from 5 to 2.
Correct.
Natural resources, that's the one that went also 5% to 0. And the Parks and Rec, that's the increase that you're
That's the
talking about.
one
And again,
line item that got our
Yeah.
attention because it went from 0 to 5.
yeah, and I think we just monitor that. And if
Yeah,
we're not
yeah.
living up to that number, I mean, I would encourage, and
We'll have a
need to keep track.
recalculation. Yeah.
you know, I think when staff is doing work in communities,
I agree with
they
that.
should be tracking the time.
Yep.
What line item are you actually talking about?
This was an email that Stephen had sent out.
There's several line items under 004.
To the 004?
Now, just when the staff is doing work, we need to make sure they understand that they come in for other purposes into our community that are not 004 items, as long as they do identify and understand
ma'am.
the distinction.
Got split.
That makes perfect sense.
Then I'm fine. Anything else? Anybody have anything for me?
No, thanks, Jeff.
Welcome.
Thank you. Next up, Rod Senior.
One item, Rod, before you start. Joe, would you please notify the 30 or 40 people that emailed me that has been addressed?
We will do that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, all,
I had nothing to do with that.
and
Uh-huh.
good to see you. Yes, we've shifted quite a bit since last Thursday, and I think the team is heading in the right direction from what I've seen of version 4.2. Looking forward to hearing your presentation. I presume you're going to make one, Stephen, today. I see that you've shifted quite a good chunk of money out of sidewalks and roadways into capital out of the version 3.3, which is pleasing to me, and it makes a lot of sense. But I do want to pick up on two big items, and one in particular, stormwater system. This still remains in the 2022 4.2 version. stormwater system repair and system pipe and catch basin cleaning is $700,000, all to be in the budget for 2022. I want to make an argument based on the following, that, as you know, Stephen, general accepted accounting principles, any expenses incurred to bring an asset to a usable condition or to extend its useful life, which includes major repairs and restorations, can and should be capitalized. And I know you agree with that. However, I've also spoken to Danny Nelson this morning. And Stephen, when did you join the district as a consultant, by the way? What year was that, roughly?
10.
2010.
Okay, well, you probably remember, if that's the case, in 2011, and you'll remember this, of course, Bob, that I remember Paul Fish and Nancy Hall having palpitations about this whole thing. They were sending frogmen down there and finding rubble. They did videos, and they had major cleaning and repairs. They had found rubble, debris, gravel, 2x4s, and a good chunk of that spend was capitalized.
And I'm sorry, right, that's in Pelican?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going back to 2011, and
Yeah.
you may or may not recall that. It may be after, before your time or after your time.
Rod, actually, we got board's permission to go out to the bond fund for all of that.
Okay, so it was capitalized. It wasn't expensed in a year like this.
It wasn't expensed in this manner, but we had a resource, the bond fund,
Yes,
which was used to
which-
bring the condition up. I don't
great.
call that a capitalization.
Well,
I'm not an accountant, but
well, if it's bonded, it's written off. It's over a period of years as opposed to 1 year, which this 700 grand is one year.
no, we didn't issue a bond.
No, I'm not suggesting.
Okay,
you
the
did.
bond was there and we used the resources.
Precisely, but it
Okay.
wasn't just thrown into your GF2, whatever it is, your account, and written off in a year,
Okay.
which is what this $700,000 is. And I'm arguing, therefore, that you should perhaps review that that $700,000 item, and perhaps the $100,000 bond bank item, and capitalize that. If that was the case, 4.2 is a hell of a lot of an improvement from last Thursday, because it brings the assessment increase down from 66% down to 15.6. But with that, if you can make some adjustment to the stormwater and pond bank, that $800,000 to shift all or some of it, we can get that down to a level that's acceptable to residents who are living on. A lot of people fixed income. We heard that last Thursday. Also, the CPI is hovering around 2%. So we could at least get it down below 10% with some consideration for those items. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rod. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Number 3 on the list, Margaret Feinberg, Stony Brook. And she asks if there will be a final copy of the complete budget available before the public hearing, and if so, when?
I'd probably say yes. And then
Vital six.
depending on how close we get in today's conversation, if we can agree in principle to most of the things that are here, if there's no outstanding items, I don't see why we couldn't have, let's call it a tentative final, is probably early next week.
Yeah, Monday.
Would seem reasonable. I don't see why not. So, I mean, it's to our benefit to get this, what we consider probably directionally correct out as soon as possible.
It'll shorten the time of that meeting.
Yeah.
A lot.
Hopefully.
And
So-
Doug, one thing I think there's also still an opportunity on our Facebook page, and I just noticed, I know Laura's doing a really good job in posting the meeting and the reminders. However, I noticed I had asked her to post the agendas, and she is, but she's posting them under comments.
Right, instead of putting it in the actual post.
But
Yeah.
then, so I think there's an opportunity for us to post as a brand new post. This is the agenda, post the meeting as a reminder, and then another post. Here's the agenda, so they know the topics, because I know I did receive a few emails in regards to why can't we see at least the agenda, so we know if we really want to be there, or maybe not, or if you want to just attend via Zoom. So I
Yeah.
think there's an opportunity for us to post, not the board book necessarily, but just the agenda as a separate post on the
Yeah,
Facebook
and I think
page.
we just need to look, because I think if you post an event, you might be limited on what, so that maybe we post the
The
event.
agenda as a picture, just like how she's
Yeah,
doing the
and then
comments.
just do a separate post with here's,
Absolutely.
you know, and I would like to have, here's the agenda and here maybe just a summary, you know, especially when it comes down to budget. We will be approving a budget at X amount % per previous conference, you know, just to give people, you know, a little bit of a, you know, a lead in.
I agree.
Because that's the problem we're having now is not everyone is attending these meetings. They're not, you know, seeing everything. So they're still operating under the assumption that the budget is where we were in the beginning. So I completely agree with that. What do we have next, Chris? Margaret, is that it for you? That one, okay.
Sue Federer, Stone Valley Loop.
This is my, but I'm here conflicting stories, and I would just like the truth from the board. Doug and Ed, I got an email from both of you. And my main question is, I love that Gateway Pool, and I know I've fallen in love with the people up there. And there are people with walkers who can't exercise anywhere else. It's quiet. I can't stand the music at Stony Brook's pool. It's 80s crazy music. There's kids jumping all over me, throwing footballs at my head, teenagers sneaking in. I need a place where I work full time from my home, and I'm very busy. And I need a place where I can go and just swim and exercise with like-minded people who need a quiet place. And my question is, that's a perfectly good pool desk. I know it needs repairs, but we love it. Why are they talking about increasing the budget and building a kiddie pool? We have Stony Brook for that. You know, we don't need to attract more kids in there. We need a place for the adults to exercise. My questions are, does the budget include a kiddie pool now? And I did watch the meeting on video last week, and I saw you had all the people leave, talk about 2 other things, and then talk about the pool again. So I just want to know straight up with this budget, what's going to be spent on pool renovations and building a kiddie pool and other pickleball courts and things like that, which will increase our taxes. And this is a scary time with great inflation, and I don't think anyone wants their taxes increased unnecessarily. If it's for something like infrastructure that we really need, that's great. But a kiddie pool, I just disagree with that, and many people do.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer and then I'll let the later, because I think we might have, I don't know, difference of opinions, but we might have differences on approach and solutions. The conversation that we had, there's kind of 2 separate conversations. One is existing pool management, maintenance, and repairs, improvements. And then there's a separate conversation around just overall park improvement, which the conversation that we have had in very early stages is building out that Commons Park to what the original design was for this community years ago, as far as that
Yeah,
space.
wouldn't it cost a lot more now than it would have been?
Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, I think when this happened 15 plus years ago, the cost to do a park, I think was what, 7.5 or 5 something. So it was, I mean, there was a lot different things to it. But to answer your question, there's 2 separate conversations. One is just overall park improvement. And in that park improvement plan, the recommendation from the firm that we have engaged is it's more cost effective to build a new pool structure with a area for lap aerobics and, you know, adult area, and more of a family style with some other amenities. So including all that in a new build, as opposed to a new build plus renovating what we have. But
What
that's
about
still, it's
just
still very,
renovating what we have and
well,
not.
but one second. So, but that's just preliminary conversation. And I think based on the environment we're in today, the budget, we've actually, you know, what I've done is kind of stop talking about the park project right now until we get the budget complete. The board members may have some differing opinions on that, but I almost feel like we need to get through the budget before we start talking about the park again. But just keep in mind, it'll be a minimum of 2 years before we break ground or any potential assessment or cost would even be incurred by the residents. So we're still very early stages. So there's nothing that would happen to that pool within the next 2 years for any enhancement replacement, just because timing. So now that leaves us with a conversation around what do we do with the existing pool? We've gotten from Tim and staff an estimate of about $250,000, could be upwards of 300, depending on you know, how far we go in operation and maintenance repair costs. Now, I don't have the itemization of all of that in front of me, but I do know that there are some things that need to be addressed. Now, the question is going to be which one of those are critical that we need to do now versus wait till we get a better understanding of what the future plan might be. There's minimal dollars in the budget and Stephen, if you can, weigh in, we don't have $250,000 set in the budget to do the renovations that staff has recommended that is needed. Again, we need to understand the priority of that to determine what needs to be done today in order to keep it from being shut down or closing it or causing a significant risk to the residents. It's just a matter of some cosmetic things or things that need to be addressed because the shelf life of the filter system or shelf life of the the coating of the pool might be getting towards the end of its life. That's what we're going to have some conversation today when we get down to some of the budget items. The pool is definitely one of the items that we need to discuss today to determine what our approach is going to be. So I don't know if that answers your question. I think what's going to happen to the pool and renovations we'll need to discuss today, but you won't see any major changes to that pool. It may not happen. We may just improve what we have if we don't move forward with the park, or if we do, it will be at least 2 years before anything significant would happen with the pool. And that's just my point of view, and I'm sure others will want to weigh in on this.
Were you basing your decisions on the surveys that you took? Because I answered.
Well, there's two
surveys.
separate things to consider.
Okay.
And I appreciate where you're coming from, Sue. But the first is the budget. That's what we're talking about right now. And that's merely maintaining what we have. No changes,
Okay.
just maintaining. Totally separate item, another conversation is the whole concept of the fun park and whatever that means. And it'll, as Doug said, somewhere in the future. That's not a part of anything we're doing today.
Good, because that would really add to our budget.
So you got to keep them totally separate because they're two different issues.
I do want to add into a few things because while we don't have Tim here, we do have Brian here, and I think Brian can guide us into this. Because I know, Doug, you mentioned a few things that are cosmetic, but I do want residents to understand there are other things that are beyond cosmetic in regards to the pool that need to be addressed. So, because I don't want the message to go out there that's, it's just cosmetic, it just doesn't look good, so we don't need to do it. So there are cosmetic things, but there are things that need to be done. Another thing that I want the message to go out there is that there are certain things that once we start renovating or fixing some items, we need to do a lot more than what we think we want or we think is a choice, because the county will come to us and say, you start with this, now you have to bring it up to code.
Right.
And this is how much more. I mean, that pool is what, 20? 94.
Almost 30 years. Yeah.
So I mean, I can tell you, because I did spend time with Brian and with Tim, there's a lot of things in regards to building on that pool that it's absolutely a no-no anymore. So it may not be broken, but because you're going to start doing some renovations, you're going to have to retrofit a lot of things. And that's why the huge price tag. But in regards to, I believe the pool is also leaking water, right? And that's one thing that I want residents to be aware of, because I think that's a big price there, and that's most important than any cosmetic thing. It's leaking water. So while we say yes, we're not going to close it, but we don't know. We don't know we don't have a microscope. We don't know what's underneath. So one day to make them to us and say, listen, we suddenly lost this much water. The pool will be closed because for safety reasons. So we want people to understand that too.
Well, I understand safety,
Yeah.
and I think everyone does. It's just to add a new kiddie pool and totally
There's no
change-
discussion about
There's no-
adding.
yeah.
That's
There's
what I
no
wanted to
enhancements on the
clarify.
table
Okay.
today for the existing pool other
Well,
than,
that's today you're saying. And I've seen
Well,
your
in this
kids
budget.
up at our pool.
In this budget.
yeah.
In this budget, or the 19th as well.
Okay.
So, but to answer your question for the existing pool, there's no plans for any additions to that pool other than what would it take,
To
other than
repair it.
maintenance and items to maintain it, keep it up and running. But even, those things we need to discuss. What is a priority? What can we, afford? What cost benefit for all those things?
I just feel like I'm representing a lot of seniors who didn't make it here.
Yeah. No,
And
understood.
I watch them exercising every day. If they don't have that pool, they don't have the exercise, and it's really important.
Yeah.
So
No, I understand.
Brian, what do
There's three issues
what do we
you
have
need to be
for
aware of.
the money for the pool?
The status quo, which is where we're at right now, there's no
We have
capital
nothing with that.
improvements planned in this budget whatsoever.
okay.
None. What Bob said is partially true, but there's a third option. The third option is to just basically Band-Aid that pool as it is to get it up to a speed that's survivable. And then there's the full deal that if we're having leaks, have to repair that and this and that and the other, could be even more money. And I'm not talking about kiddie pool or anything else. So I'm talking about those levels. Those don't bother me as a board member. What bothers me, and I will not agree to unless it's passed, is that there's a user charge fee. Right now, 1 out of 7 residents in this community use the pool, 6 out of 7 paid to pick up the tab. That's not right. The survey showed that's not right by a demanding, don't build it, don't touch it, fill it in, paint it green, call it grass. That's where I'm at, unless the community comes out and agrees that the 1,000 people that belong to that pool and have a fob or have a pass, they pay the equivalent of $300 a year to maintain the pool. If we don't get that confirmation, as far as I'm concerned, lock the gate and close the door.
And I have to discuss that with a lot of the guys who swim laps in the morning, for some reason don't want to come to meetings. And I'm willing to pay $300 a year, and a lot of them are too.
My
There are
trouble is
some-
I got a lot of emails back that said, I want you to pay for it. I don't want to pay for it.
Well, that's what they're gonna, everyone's
That's what they're
gonna
gonna
say.
say.
aren't they?
And my deal is
But-
that's what they're
But
gonna
the
say,
people
but my
who really
vote is
want
going
the
to be no.
pool, those are the people who don't use the pool. But the people who use the pool, I think a lot of them are willing to pay that. I am.
Chris, did you email the board another survey results? Because I did not get another results besides the original one, and that was pretty much even, people that wanted and people that did not want it. I didn't get one that said people did not want it up.
Totally different.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
let's,
okay.
let's pause this conversation because we're not
Well, hold it,
solutioning now.
we need to make sure that we're transparent on this, Doug. There is no money budgeted for this for the next 3 years. No capital whatsoever of any kind for anything for Parks and Recreation. None, zero.
But if you charged a $300 fee for.
That's operating. Our budget to keep that pool open,
Mhm.
no capital.
That
It's
means,
almost
that means
three-
no new improvements.
Improvements
Okay.
is right at $300,000.
Okay.
So divided by 1,000 people, that's $300 a year, which means every single one of those 1,000 have to pay the 300.
But you,
Any non-consenting
Ed,
people.
we're a long way from that. We're.
Yeah, that's-
a lot of-
yeah.
That's my motion though, Bob.
Well, and
Well,
there might
it's- I'm
be
not
some
gonna
We're not
vote for it.
voting on that.
I'm not
but
going
you
to vote on
didn't
it.
invite
though. I'm just
100,000, you have
I'm doing a bill
7,000.
copy. I'm
Guys.
not voting on it.
We've heard it.
Okay,
We know
so
it.
Sue, thanks for your comments. I'm sure we'll get into more discussion around this as we get to that particular item. And then, feel free to continue to email us or you can call me,
Okay, thank you.
with any concerns. Thank you.
And we have one last speaker, and that is Steve and Candy Brown, Championship Circle.
Chris knows why I'm here. It's
Pool
about
and
the
lake.
pool.
We've already
Surprise,
talked about the pool.
surprise.
No, I'm just kidding.
But I've used that pool for 10 years and it's helped so much with my arthritis. I have it really bad.
I'm sorry, which community do you live in? I'm sorry.
Bill was a Gateway
Okay.
Greens,
Gateway Greens.
but it's been, wonderful for me because I really have severe arthritis. And I keep hearing rumors, I heard the other day, we're gonna pay $300 for the pool. And first it was gonna be closed and the new pool was gonna be open. It was gonna be resort stuff. All I want is clarity on if that pool is gonna be closed. And if we're gonna have to pay $300 a year to use it. You can't go on like this month after month, rumors all going around. You need to tell people what's gonna happen.
Would you be willing
I
to pay
mean-
300 a year?
I would if I had to, yeah, I would, yeah.
So the answer your
I
question,
would be willing to pay for it if the money is truly going towards the upkeep
It would
of
have
the
to be.
pool.
but then again,
Yeah.
hypothetically, when we're looking at a number, you have to get everyone that you identify in that dollar range to pay that amount.
we're all in it
And-
together.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
what the issue is that if
people who
we
have
don't get it, you just
arthritis,
close
I
it.
think would pay.
So the answer to your question is, there's no definitive
Okay,
decision on the pool other than what we have today
But
is
we
what we're gonna
gotta
maintain
get
and
there.
operate. So we'll maintain and operate what we have today until the point that maintenance and operation supersedes what we have planned or budgeted for, and then we would have to make a decision at that time. Now, on the side, there'll be ongoing conversations on what we want to do as a community, what the residents want, what they're willing to pay for. That's going to take time. We're going to have a lot of discussion on that. It may stop in a month and we don't talk about it anymore, or it might be ongoing for months, years, who knows? You can flip the coin. But the pool, we have no intentions of closing the pool at this point based on what we know today, but we can't guarantee longevity because we don't know at what point we'll have additional risk or additional costs. We have to make a decision at that point,
Right.
which I know doesn't, probably make you feel any better, but
But it's always been past the health department. I think it was closed once a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's been kept up.
Well, part of
the
those
health
hurdles
department.
with, not the health department per se, but with the county is when you reach a certain point of maintenance improvements,
Maintenance.
dollar amount, that then you have a tripwire. They said, oh, that's not an improvement. Now you're refurbishing a whole different set of regulations and rules apply now. So there's
Right,
quite a bit to it.
Just so you make us aware. of
Absolutely.
what
We can't
going
control the
on.
rumors.
Yeah. My other question is about the landscaping around the lakes. Mine hasn't been done. The refurbishing of the shoreline.
Sure.
And I want to know where that stands. Did they quit them or?
is that the sod?
She's on 114 and it's one of the later ponds.
Phase 3, yeah.
You're on the pond that
There is
faces
a
the driving
priority
range.
list.
So she's talking about when
Lake
it's on the
restoration.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wants to know when her pond
When-
banks
yeah.
are going to be taken care of like the rest of the
Yes,
ponds.
we're working on that, on the next phases. And
Well, we have 11 lakes we have for design that are up for funding.
No, it
from
seems
DEP.
funny that they got the people on the board that got their lakes done, that they didn't get mine done.
You need to run for the board.
I just,
well, I don't live on a lake, so,
oh, okay,
Doesn't
well,
im- doesn't
some
impact me.
did, some
Ed, that's just
probably
me.
I'll
the
send you-
old ones.
I'll send you that.
It's just
That's
Ed.
it.
I'm,
It's
just
just Ed and
answer that.
I, that's it.
and I'm glad I didn't pick them.
but we're having some ongoing discussions on
you're
that next
working
phase. And so
on
we'll
it.
let you know
Okay.
when your pond's on the list. So thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Okay, is that all the speakers? Oh, go ahead, sir.
Just to follow up on one thing that you said, Ed, you said 1 in 7 don't use a pool. Well, we've been here for 10 years and we've been paying into this lake project of everybody getting this shoreline upgraded. So we've been paying into that where other people have gotten the benefit. So there's just an example of the other way that this can go.
Yeah, we all
But the
pay
other
for
one-
schools that we don't have that many kids in them,
The issue,
generally
the issue,
speaking.
Steve, is one's going to be corrected all the way and everybody will benefit. The other one is nobody's still going to benefit, but 6 or 7 aren't going to use it. That's the difference.
Well, and
Yeah, I think you need to factor in all those homes that already have pools of their own.
Well,
too.
I think the big one, and this is why I'm hoping that we get this survey out. The results of this last survey were very staggering. Nobody in this community wants to build anything. Shelve it.
I don't agree with
Not
that.
what I read.
That's not what I
Yeah,
read.
it's not a red
Did you read
either.
the
That's why I'm
survey?
asking if we have a
So
different
we can
survey.
interpret the
There was-
survey.
One that said 48% and all the rest of them were 80 to 90%. Don't do anything. What part of that do you
I
not
don't-
understand?
I don't see that. I didn't see that.
Okay.
Did you read it?
We all have
Yeah.
our
You
opinions.
got the new survey.
Move on.
Yeah, the
That's why
latest
I'm asking him, the latest one. I only get one updated one that came from Laura.
So
No,
again,
There's 2 surveys.
so guys, let's,
Second survey.
That's
we're not
the
talking about
second survey.
the parts today. We really need to focus on the budget. So we're not here till 7 o'clock, but I understand what you're saying. There's a little difference in opinion on communal living versus, a different
Okay.
approach, but
I just had a couple of more questions. Looking at all the documents that have been put out as far as these projects that have been identified, have all these been quoted by the bidding process? Or are they just a
Estimates,
number?
Steve, just estimates,
This is just
staff
plan.
estimates, using prices from previously bid projects, but they're the best estimate the staff has. And I've looked at all of them and I think the staff's done a damn good job. I think they've done a damn good job.
How do you get funding for it if you're just dealing with an estimate?
Right now, what we do is we get a bond anticipation note or we get a bond validation to go up to a 20-year bond. Then we have to go through the process of getting them permitted, bid, and then we go back and get the money based upon the actual design and bids.
Who is controlling the bid process who's controlling who gets the bid versus who doesn't?
We do.
Staff,
How,
yeah.
how many quotes do you
We
get
do.
on a
We do.
project?
It
Well,
varies.
here's the problem you got on this. We've had projects where we got one quote because there's only one bidder that would bid. I mean, the work we're doing on these ponds there's not a handful of people. It's not like going out building a house. There's just a few people that do this work. And when you get into some even more sophisticated work that we're going to be talking about on some of these pipe repairs that we've got, you might only have one bidder and be lucky you got it. So that's the problem we run into.
But-
And if they qualify,
Well, but also know too,
If
there's
they
been
qualify.
projects that we have done that we have pulled forward because it's more cost effective, because the price per square foot is really attractive. There's projects that we push back because the price per square foot or price for whatever is, kind of above what we had budgeted. So we try to be fiscally responsible when it comes to, adhering to our budget amount and also trying to do as much value engineering as we can.
But we have legal requirements for how to bid it. It's got to be a
Yeah.
public bid. It's got to be open to anybody that wants to bid if they have the certain requirements, to either do the job or the resources to do it.
Are there any requirements that say that once you get funding for something like this, that the projects that you've identified are actually done and the money isn't shifted over to something else?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All of these
Yeah.
funds we have to go back. The engineers has to give certifications at the end of the projects. We get final pay estimates. Everything's confirmed. The only thing that would fall into the category slightly of what you're talking about is we have to do a change order. If we get out there and run into an unknown condition and have to spend an extra 50,000, which we've had on projects, those have to be documented and approved before we go do the work.
Yeah, well, I bring that up because there was a comment made on a previous meeting I attended that said that the previous boards have shifted around money from one category to the next. And nobody knows where the money went and the projects didn't get done either.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, oh, yeah. We have done that
Within
for
accounting
years.
columns, but
We have
not
changed,
projects.
we have
Not
shifted,
on the project. though.
not projects.
Yeah.
We have shifted funds from one account to another, but not projects. Not projects.
And that might be, let's say if we have something in stormwater for this and we have another project in stormwater, we can move, we have some ability to shift dollars, but there's also a lot of restrictions on what you can move, what you can't move.
But you can't raise money for stormwater and then spend it on a fun park.
So you have to stay within your, within your zone, but you can move some stuff around. There's some ability to do that, but you really can't do it on a grand scale.
No.
So,
With the money that we're using that's publicly bid and either a bond and or an SRF loan, state revolving fund, you can't do that.
Okay,
Okay,
that's all I've got.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Good question.
Thank you everyone for your comments and input. So Stephen, why don't we start with you and let you give an overview of the work that you've done with staff in order to come up with these two updated versions, 4.1 and 4.2, the difference in the two and what your recommendation and staff's recommendation.
Sure. So obviously at the end of our last meeting on Thursday, the directive was to go back and take another look at, in particular, the O&M items and see if there was anything else additional that could be moved into the capital project listing, as well as, we basically reviewed pretty much every line again to see what else could also be cut. So we did that, again, went through, in particular, the waterway department is the largest one. But we looked at, Parks and Recs, landscaping, really across the board. So 4.1 version, it's up and you guys have, lists all of the changes. And the last 2 pages literally shows, just the changes line for line. On everything that we discussed and either decided to move over, directly to the capital projects, or reduce because some of those expenses, instead of all being done in 1 year, was going to be done maybe in 2 years or 3 years. And so that's, I'll kind of maybe move to the last page. Last 2 pages. You can see what I mean by tracking this. And just FYI, there was one item that we actually increased as requested by staff. So, in total, when you look at the bottom here, this new version has a reduction of about $2.9 million in terms of, of the reductions. Now, what I did, because there've been so many versions that we've kind of floated around, this chart compares it back to the approved version, which when I say the approved version, that was the one back in June that the board approved.
High water mark.
Yes, the high water mark. It was then noticed and was in the advertisement to just try and get some perspective. So this is not like this isn't another 2.9 on top of some other changes. This is the total reduction of everything. I mean, anything that was ever moved to the capital projects, anything additional that was done. If you remember the first version, we moved 1.4 to capital projects, and now we have this version of about 2.9. And again, you can see all the different line items that I moved. This is version 2, which gets me ahead. So that's what version 0.1. It's coming from staff. It's coming from us doing all the due diligence and trying to see what that looked like. From there, this does not want to look right. I'll let you do this. From there, we went to version 4.2. So version 4.2 is strictly coming from me saying, okay, here's where we got to, version 4.1, meaning here's where the assessments got to.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
Why did you do 4.2?
I'm sorry?
Why did you do 4.2?
4.2 was done because as part of the end discussions of the last meeting, there were some directions to see what could be done to use some other types of resources like fund balance. That came from board direction.
Well, I totally agree with that, but we changed numbers in 4.2. Why did we change numbers?
Okay, well, I'll get into that.
Okay. Well, I was just trying to get the answer as to why we did 4.2, because 4.1, I somewhat agree, not totally, somewhat agree with what you said to start with. That was what we basically directed to be done. 4.2 goes into some things we did not talk about.
Well, yeah. So 4.2 was trying to get to the directive was, it was expressed that the board would like to see something between a 15 to 20% increase year over year. That's the only reason why I even.
So you backed into that number.
entertained
And in order to do that, you had to add additional funding and to make some concessions.
4.2 did, or 4.1 did that.
Not, I don't know, 4.1 did not.
Almost.
4.1
No,
was right on.
close.
It was
It was
close,
close.
yeah.
Yeah, it was. And I wanted you to be able to see what it would take to get from where 4.1 was to under 20%.
Okay.
Because when you look at it, there are lines, and that's 4.1 that you put up there.
Yes, this is.
So
There are, but the single family, multifamily,
Yeah, 'cause that's
basically
28.
the residential sections were all well over 20%, 26, 34, So I just wanted you to get some perspective. It's really all 4.2 is trying to do. It doesn't mean there's anything in there that, you have to keep or you have to do, but it gives you a little bit of perspective to say, okay, how do I get from, this version to actually getting it under 20%? And to do that, there was some additional O&M cuts. I did add some $200,000 similar to this year. I mean, this year we have 200,000 in fund balance. So I did add that for next year. And then I lowered a couple other line items just to kind of see. It's really about perspective. It's not, hey, let's, pull that, do it. It's here, what would it take type of a scenario.
And do we feel like, because I know Rod had brought up the stormwater, do we feel like one, to Rod's question, is that, is there any amounts in that area that we could add to capital? Do we feel very confident that everything we've gone through, that we've pulled everything into capital that we can in these budgets? So what's your stance on, answering Rod's question
So,
around?
We talked about that quite a bit, obviously.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Chris, that item that Rod was talking about, that's sewer cleanout, right? It's,
No, it's constant.
No.
I mean, pipe, that was pipe inspections?
Yeah, and repair.
Pipe inspection and repair. Okay.
Yeah, so, we had discussions with staff. I also had some discussions with auditors, meaning independent CPA firms, just to ask them the same type of question. Some of these firms deal with 200+ districts, and I always ask them, what have you seen? Have you seen anybody capitalize this type of stuff, just to make sure what I'm thinking is, I'm crazy or something. And no, I did not get anything back from the auditors that I talked to that suggested stormwater cleaning and just basic repairs should be capitalized over 20 years, let alone 5 years. So, and just kind of to expand on that a little.
Even if those inspection repairs helps
Extend the life.
extend the
No,
longevity.
No, absolutely. That's why when that.
So it is possible. It's
So-
just maybe not be standard practice.
So they know that it will extend the life.
If that's not what I'm hearing from staff. Now, again, I'm obviously not an engineer.
Well, they don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
I can tell you as an engineer, it extends the life.
If you were just doing, again, I want to give you the facts, and obviously you have more experience as an engineer than I have not. So here's what I'm hearing, and here's how I'm interpreting it, and then we can go from there.
And then I'd like Chris to give his interpretation.
So if all you're doing is just cleaning it out, similar to you get an oil change on a car, you got to clean it out. You got to do certain stuff to that stormwater drain over the course of every other year, every 3 years or something. That's not extending the life. That's just what you need to do on an annual basis.
But if you don't do that,
then
you're going to have critical failure at some
yes,
point.
you are. But that's why you have O&M. But that's considered a repair. That's not capitalized again over another 20 years because that asset is already being amortized over 20 years. Now, again, like you said, if you are doing something that, hey, I'm adding something to it that's material and it's going to extend it another 5 years, another 10 years, absolutely. There's no question that would be amortized.
So pond bank repair,
Just simple.
pond bank repair, whether it's point repair or complete pond,
Nope. Now you're getting to two different areas.
that's good.
If you are doing
That's
a
good.
complete renovation of something.
No, I'm talking point repair. We want to talk point repair. We last year ran short of money, and that's why I'm concerned about this. A lot of people are talking about, hey, you didn't do my lake. We got problems. We ran out of money. We don't have any in this budget. My question is, why are those point repairs not turning that pond into 20 years?
If you were just doing stuff to keep it up and running, that's not considered extending the life. If you're doing major renovations to it.
It's nothing more than what we're doing with the SRF, and that's 20 years. What's the difference?
Well,
We're not doing the whole
Well,
pond because we don't need to do the whole
It's
pond.
not about doing the whole pond. It's about what are you doing? Are you tearing up?
Yeah, redoing the bank.
But
Yeah.
so, Chris, let me
That's the key question.
Ed, if I may also, and Stephen, I think what's helpful, there's in the Florida statutes, there's a requirement to bid construction projects of its construction. And there's an interesting sort of definition of repair and maintenance. I think that's what Stephen's trying to differentiate. A repair is corrective action to restore an existing public facility to a safe and functional condition. Maintenance is a preventive or corrective action to maintain an existing facility in an operational state or preserve the facility from failure. However, the statute also goes on to say, if you are construction of any new building or any substantial addition, extension, or upgrade to an existing facility is not repair or maintenance. And so the lake bank erosion program, I would suggest, and the engineers and Stephen can agree or disagree, that in fact, they were a substantial upgrade to those facilities by virtue of the nature of the repairs.
Yeah, and Tony, I think we're using that as an example, but I'd like to stay pointed on the specific item at hand. So Stephen, if this board determines that we feel the inspection and maintenance in stormwater prolongs the life of those, and we feel it falls into a capital exercise, if we make that decision, what ramifications may come in the future? Like what could happen?
There's no ramifications. What we're talking about here is
So
mechanics more than
it's basically accounting principles and how we interpret those accounting
Yeah.
principles.
Well, Doug, I disagree. Someone could challenge that and say it's not a valid basis for a capital project.
Tony,
Say that again.
if in the
Someone
course,
could challenge it and say it's not a valid basis for a capital project. And
challenge that?
recall also for the engineer's report for the financing, we need to have the engineer say that these are appropriate and valid capital projects and programs.
Tony, if I was the engineer, I
Okay.
could do that, so I'm not worried about
If-
it. I'm going by
Hang on
gap.
a second,
All right.
Bob.
If you discover a pipe, and I guess I'm going to aim this at Brian, and in the course of discovering the pipe that you want to clean, you find it 7 foot below the grade of the pond, that's a capital project to fix that. If you have a pipe that is at grade level and has 30 or 40% of sediment in it, that is not capital. That is just routine cleaning. And that's the way you got to differentiate it.
Doug,
But
Bill
it
just joined.
extends the life. Just listen to what,
That's kind of
Listen-
immaterial.
listen,
It really is.
no, that is the
The
total
core, the
deal.
core issue is,
Well, I
is
talked
the
to Bob, I talked to
infrastructure-
2 other people, both of which know this community, and they totally disagree with this, that what we're proposing to do, those are totally capitalized. So
well,
I
and
find
those
that
2 people, are
amazing.
they going to
One
write
of
this?
them is our firm that did the asset methodology. He says
Well-
they do it all the time.
Well, I think
I
the
don't
question,
understand this. I think, here's what I don't get, people. We're sitting here looking at $900,000 that right now is going to go to raise your assessment. I'm looking at, go to the bank, ask for it in a 20-year loan. 900,000 divided by 20 is about $45,000. So we just took 45,000 less 900, 855,000 right straight off the top, off your accounts.
If it's
Why
considered
wouldn't you do
legitimate.
that?
well, here's,
Do
I don't,
what?
I don't think, hold on, Bob, I don't think there's anyone on the board that is arguing 20-year financing and pull as much as we can into
If
capital.
you can get it.
I don't think
Absolutely.
anyone's going to disagree with that.
It's legal.
That's what we want. The question is, what can we do and what we can support? Now, if Stephen, staff, our engineering, the board, if we feel like we could take that 700, 900,000, whatever, and move it all to capital, fine. I have no problem with it. If we don't believe we can do it all, then how do we split it?
Yeah.
And are we in a position to determine today within a reasonable understanding of variance, what is that amount and where is the line? And if the line is, gray, then we
Go to
need to
our
understand what amount of risk are we willing to take to say
Yeah.
this is capital versus maintenance.
The biggest
So we're-
risk is the bank saying no. That's the biggest risk.
I think there's something to keep in mind here. We're talking a lot about accounting and gray areas.
Yes.
within-
I can't hear you.
No, we just said you're online.
Just for the record, Bill, Supervisor Bill Guys joined. So
Mr. Chairman, perhaps the board may want to, someone make a motion, the board approve Mr. Guy's full participation.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The bottom
Yeah.
of the discussion was how much can we
Well,
reasonably transit?
again, the discussion of how much you leave in the budget versus what the bank ultimately does should be kind of 2 separate discussions. This is your budget. Taking it out of the budget does not mean you have to spend it through the capital plan.
But what it does mean is if
You
we
raise
have-
the rates.
You
Well,
won't
well,
have-
no,
if
what
you
it
keep
does mean is if we go and it doesn't get approved then we don't have the money to do the work.
And then we
So
delay the work.
I think
Yeah, that's,
what would be, I think physically responsible is we identify how much to leave in, let's say it's 300,000 and we pull everything else out. And at least we've got a cushion to maybe get us through a certain amount of time period and then we can look at alternative
Yeah.
funding sources at that point.
because again, you have to keep in mind, the bank is going to make a determination based on what we provide them.
Yes.
And then they're going to look at it and decide how much they're going to want to give us. And then you go from there, right? So you have to be comfortable with what's in your budget. Now, again, if staff is not agreeing that this is capital projects, I'm not sure where you go from there in terms of determining that it is, because you've got to have an engineers, you got to have your staff on board with what you're saying. If staff is saying this work is going to be done now and then have to be done again in another 3 years or 5 years, I don't see what the discussion is to amortize that over 20.
Why would it have to be done when it hasn't been done in 25?
Well, I think what Stephen is saying and what we have, I think, said is once we start cleaning pipes, you would need to do it on a rotation. So and it's not going to be every 20 years.
We
It's
do
going
it
to be
every five.
every 5 years.
What-
So
You do what we're signing to the state is that we're doing is every 10 years. And it's a lie. We've never done it. It's a flat lie.
no, but we're saying going forward.
Well, 10
If we
years is the
amortize over
sta-
20 years, we're going to have to do it again in 5.
10 years
So
is
we
the
got a budget
standard.
for that.
10 years is the standard. Here's the problem you're doing. You're putting yourselves in a corner. We've got other assets coming down the road that we are not going to win. For example, the park, we talked about, we were all up in the air, the park, oh, that's 5.5 million. Well, it's nothing because we're just going to do it 20 years. It ain't got 20-year life. Nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. So if you can't do this, you sure as hell can't do the park. How many more things you going to take out? This is nonsense, people. We're talking about people's lives here and the money we're spending. The worst thing that can happen, is the bank would say no. I've never seen a bank with somebody like us, a utility that has access to cash, will not say no.
Is
Well,
Tetra Tech?
twofold, right? It will say no, and if they say, the bank will say no, and if so,
We still
the
have-
project won't happen for that particular year. So it's two things will
So
happen.
it's went 20 years
Well,
and hadn't
I
happened.
know,
What makes the
I
difference
know,
of
so
another
it'll be
year?
two things, yeah.
Well, because that's kind of what our philosophy is we put a plan together and we're trying to execute on the plan. But hey, Chris, do we have engineering on? Is Tetra Tech, anyone from Tetra Tech on?
I don't think they've
Stephen,
come on.
let me see here.
Okay.
I
And
don't
Chris,
see it.
so we need to get Tetra Tech's position on this. And Chris, what is staff's position?
And my comment is we do a lot of work with SRF, and SRF requires you to have a financial responsibility plan when you borrow money from them, which is how you take care of their asset. They'll loan you money to build a new wastewater plant. They won't loan you money to replace pumps in a plant. From a utility standpoint, Capital is building a lift station, and when you go put a new pump in it, it's not a capital item, it's renewal and replacement. And my only concern is, I still think that those items are maintenance, but if you're gonna call it whatever you want, if it's something we do every 2 or 3 years or clean storm drains and it's maintenance, are you gonna go out in 3 more years and borrow for another 20 to do maintenance work?
No, I think we're mixing apples and oranges. Listen to this. This is critical. This is GAAP. All expenses incurred to bring an asset to a usable condition, comma, extend its useful life, comma, or provide some other economic benefit should be capitalized. These expenses include major repairs, restorations, overhauls, improvements, and professional and consulting fees and studies.
Yeah,
I don't know how you get it
Is
in
that
here.
is that every 3
Well,
years?
well,
That's
so-
That's
so-
GAAP.
So I don't think we disagree with the
It didn't say
definition.
anything about 3 or 20.
Yeah.
It just said those are the rules.
One second. I don't think we're disagreeing on the definition. Here's what I think I'm hearing. If we have an item and we deem it as maintenance, but it's to increase the life and longevity of that particular asset, if that needs to happen every 5 years, or let's just say every 10 years, then we need to allocate the budget for twice in 10 years, right? So that's what Bob's point.
That's what your capital reserve plan should show you.
Right, so what we have said as this board is we are going to set routines and procedures in place for stormwater, sewage, inspection, maintenance, aeration, all that stuff. And we're going to do inspections and we're going to do maintenance on a regular basis. If we say that's 5 years, that means over the next 20 years, we're going to do cleaning on, through our system 4 times.
Correct.
So if we're going to do a 20-year, we're going to budget for 20 years, we have to budget it 4 times.
Doug, I'm going to say it one more time.
Is that
Storm sewers, the repetitiveness on it is once every 10 years.
okay? But then we need to budget for it twice over 20 years, because we're going to finance for 20 years. You don't want to finance one for 20 years and then in 10 years have to do
No,
it again.
It's going to be a staggered schedule.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you do this, you can take right now, just keep in mind what's not in this. Our current budget for 22, 23, 24 has no money for roads, curbs, and sidewalks. No money.
Well, that's why
No
we're
money.
talking about
If we
a
take,
5 million over 20 years
Doug, that's what
gives
look,
us additional padding.
No,
towards-
no. You lost track of this whole deal. That's not what staff did. Staff came up with $5 million worth of items, okay? And they went back and they scattered that 5 million over the next 3 years. This number is going to be significantly greater probably closer to 15 to 20 million when you throw in the building and all the other things that aren't even in this budget. That's why I say we're doing this so ass backwards. It's not funny. We first need a capital reserve that goes all the way out. Good examples. Chris did a great job. He prepared a capital reserve, or started what looks like a capital reserve. And if you look across, he's got roads, curbs, and gutters, 387,000 or 300,000 and 187,000 for a total of 487 for the next 5 years. Next 5 years. That's nowhere in our numbers, guys. Nowhere. And we're going to have to pay it. We're not doing this right, and we have not been advised to do it right. That's what ticks me off about all of this. Stephen, you should have been telling us a long time ago, you guys got to come up with a capital reserve, because one of these days you're going to hit a brick wall. And gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, we hit the brick wall. We got a problem here. My solution is, if the worst thing I'm going to get is a hand slap, and I'm in safe with the general accounting, I'm going to take this $700,000, $800,000 that Brian has identified. I'm going to take that and put that in the loan. I'm going to start the roads. I'm going to put that in, because that will allow me to offset that cost, because I just saved that money from the other. And now I'm killing two birds with one stone. And the worst that's going to happen to me is somebody might not like it, but it sure as hell isn't going to be the residents, because I just saved them a buku amount of money.
Yeah, I don't think we're disagreeing with that.
I don't
think
understand why
anyone's
this is
disagreeing.
so complicated.
Yeah, I don't think we're disagreeing with that. So
We're not, I'm not.
yeah, I think what we need to determine is, can we allocate the full amount, or should we keep a portion of that in the budget
In case we get
in the event
decline.
that we do run into an issue that will at least cover us to be able to, execute some portion.
He's taken, that's frustrating. 4.2, he went and used $200,000 of revenue, of retained earnings, right? Reserve, to lower the rate, Why can't we do that anytime? We were going to use $1 million at the last budget. So my deal is, our safety factor is, and always has been, the reserve.
Okay, so if we allocate, so if we pull the reserve 200K out, put it back in the bank, and then we take what was the amount, 700?
Well, he's got about 900,000 that I've identified that could
700
easily
plus
be.
the 200 for road? Is that, what was the?
Chris had identified 487, 500 for roads.
So if we look at, I don't know about the roads. I don't know what item you're talking about, but the 700, I completely understand that. So if we pull the 700 into capital, pull the 200 out, we need to look at the road. I don't know what the road.
I don't know where
items are.
Chris came up with the number. I'm assuming what Chris
And
did
it
is he
is-
went out
So
and he did a capital reserve projection. I didn't see anything wrong with the
Is
number.
any of that in this?
I was gonna say, going,
No, it's not in
going
here. That's my
forward,
point.
and
It needs to be.
and I think I mentioned this about 2 meetings ago, and I think it came with a document that I had asked Brian, and I came in and I guess you guys were not even aware that he had it. I think when we come up with things like this, it's beneficial. I mean, it does no good that only Ed has visibility of it. I think we should all have it. So I love it that you took the initiative and you did it, but it would have been a lot better that if we all had it and we all understand what you're
Well,
talking
I'm
about.
assuming that everybody is educated here
Well,
and knows that we have to fix roads.
We have it, but we
So
don't have.
why didn't somebody ask that question? Why didn't we have roads?
Well, but if the document's already created, I mean, just if going forward, Chris, for you and staff, if you create something, it's gonna give us more knowledge. Send it to all of us. I mean, Doug, you disagree?
I don't disagree.
Well,
Okay.
when did you guys get this 4142?
Monday.
Yesterday.
This morning.
Was it?
I
When
got
did
mine
you
this
send it?
morning.
You get yours
I might have
Yesterday
this
this morning.
I didn't
Yeah.
know if the mail was.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
I kept checking yesterday too, yeah.
Well, my point is that we have one heck of a lot more issues to talk about that we've got coming up facing us in the next 5 to 10 years that even is begun to be talked about in this budget.
Well,
And it's
let's get
real.
through this.
And here's the problem, Doug, is that if it's, let's say it's, make up a number, it's $500,000 and it's got to be done in 5 years. Boys, do the math. That's $100,000 a year. It's got to go in here, or you're going to get out there and you're going to sticker shock everybody in 5 years with a $500,000 add-on. That is not the way you run a business.
Well, don't
And it's sure as hell not the way you run a utility.
Stephen,
What is your proposal? Ed?
My proposal is to take and have Stephen go back through, number one, version 4.1, which I thought was pretty good. Take those items, and I came up with 3 of them that totaled $900,000. Move them over to capital. Then insert back into capital also, because we just had a savings, a huge savings, insert in some of the things that we've got facing us that are not in this budget at all. There is
If that's
time
done,
in this
do the
budget for
numbers
roads.
change?
I'm sorry.
If that's done, do the numbers
Yes.
change?
Yeah.
It'll
You're
come
taking
down.
7 out, you put 7 in?
Yeah, so the.
Well, not necessarily a
well,
whole
you
No,
said
it
seven.
doesn't, it doesn't, well, no, I said 900,000. No, it doesn't work that way. Because your problem is, and this is the other thing that we've had, a fallacy that we're doing on all this. We are not operating the way we did 2 years ago, guys. It isn't you take money out of X and put it in Y and divide it by Z. We now have a methodology plan that you take water out of water and you put it in water. Roads are separate, parks and rec is separate. Different people pay. If we take things out of stormwater and put them over capital, that's going to be beneficial primarily to our commercial users. They get a benefit out of that because they have a bigger percentage on the payment. If we take it out of roads, we residents get a pretty good percentage out of it. If we take that.
All I need to know is what are we taking out for the capital? There's
The
a
3
number.
items?
I would take out $900,000.
Okay, and then what are we putting back
What are
in
those items?
for the
What-
things that,
The 3
On
items.
page 4 of 4.2, there's 300 and 700,000. I'm sorry.
Take note of this,
The
please.
300 is the stormwater system repair maintenance, that one?
And there was 500. It's
was
on
Tony.
page 4, it's line items back to back, 300 and 500 in the middle of the page.
It's a stormwater system
must
repair
be on the wrong
maintenance and stormwater system piping catch basin,
4.1.
And
Oh,
the
well,
other one
4.2.
was 100,000.
which is right below, is it the one that's right below? It's for pond bank annual maintenance?
Okay, so 4.1, page 4.
So the one that has 100,000, even.
And there was one more that was 100,000.
Is it even, Ed? 100,000 even?
It's 3 and 5. And there was one that's 100,000.
Should be right on your
Oh,
screen.
pond bank maintenance on page 4, $100,000.
Okay.
That's your 900,000 on that single page.
I'm sorry.
That's your 900,000.
That's
under
900,000.
The waterway management
Yeah.
services, right?
I would take that 900 out, and then I would put in this chart that Steven sent, which I think is a great start, this one here, I would add in an amount, and it doesn't have to be the 487 that Chris came up with, but we've got to have something in there for roads
So,
and
Chris,
curbs.
can
We
you-
have nothing.
So as a follow-up, Chris needs to work with Steven and let us know what his estimate is for roads, so we can include that in. So
Road-
you're
road
adding,
curbs.
adding roads, you're adding how much back in?
we don't know yet, but it'll
Well,
probably be anywhere from 3 to 450.
Well, just look at it this way. Whatever you add back in, subtract from 9 and divide by 20, and that's the savings. It's that easy.
So just,
I have a question.
Steven, are you clear on the 900 that Ed was calling it?
Yes.
So it's pond bank annual maintenance, and what was the other? It was the stormwater repair maintenance. Was it catch basin? Was that included?
Yeah, it's the one that says 3 and 5.
Yeah, okay, so there's
And
3
then
of them.
right on down below it.
It's 3,
it
4,
says
and 1 is what I
100.
see.
Yeah, 3, 5, and 1.
3, 5, and 1.
I don't see the 5, still don't.
Trying to name.
So if you put the roads in at 3, that still gives you a 6 positive divided by 20. That's $30,000 a year. That's a lot of savings.
And Ed, do you feel comfortable with $100,000 for the pond?
For the ponds,
Oh, yeah. okay.
Given that
Yeah.
we know, just given that we know that each repair costs $2,000, so that means it's 50 repairs and the
Well-
last pond alone was like 20.
Flavia, you brought up an issue that this bothered me. I have to ask Brian this one. This is the other one that bothered me on this whole
So I don't
deal.
think $100,000 is enough.
We started out with $400,000 or $500,000 in the very first budget for pond maintenance. And all of a sudden we dropped that down, and it's not in any of the future years. What was the reason?
Brian, when you come up to the podium,
Why did
because
we
I have a
drop
bunch
it?
of questions.
Because if it was dropped to save money, you're
I
not doing
think-
any resident any favors.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, a couple things. The first thing is if you get rid of totally your $900,000, we're under a contract with MRI for $100,000 to finish Basin 5 starting in October. So what money am I going to use to pay those folks?
But we still, we have it.
You're gonna have it down to zero though, if you get rid of that
Say
money.
it, say it again now.
He's saying.
You have Basin 5, when we divided that out on those bids, that 500,000, 100,000, that is a finished Basin 5.
And I was to know that how?
I made that known a long time ago when we did
Well,
the
I mean,
bids
when we
up.
do the budgets, we need to know that as board members.
Yeah.
We need to know that. But
That-
if that's the case, then
800 then.
make it 800,000.
That
If
will
you
cover,
have a cash issue.
that would
But
have,
why couldn't you go to the bank and borrow that also?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I was.
Why couldn't you
I
go to the
thought
bank
that
and borrow it?
100,000 was part of what we already had in.
I did too.
So we have it. We're just pulling it from a different source.
Yeah.
Well, but
I
if
don't
you
know
already
why
in the
you just can't go to
contract,
the
then
bank
you would
and
be able
borrow
to use.
Yeah.
The oth-
So we
the
have
other-
to keep 100,000.
the other issue with the pond bank maintenance, reason we asked for the 500,000 is if you don't get any SRF funding.
Mhm.
And right now, I've been told there's probably not going to get any if you do. And we have a lot of washouts that, of course, we didn't get done. And that was part of the 500,000. Now, it's been
Which
cut.
makes those even more capitalized because that's how they were
And I
being
agree.
funded in the first place.
So let me I want to make sure Stephen catches this. So we need to keep $100,000 in for existing stormwater
Pipe and
for-
catch
for
basin cleanup.
carryover. I don't know if you call it carryover or not, but it's for stormwater basin.
So we're now,
Stormwater
We
catch
did.
water
Okay.
basin. So we went from 900 back to 800.
Brian, which line
well, I
item does
thought we
that
went
come out
from
of?
900.
9 to 8. So we're taking out, instead of 500,000 out of stormwater pipe catch basin cleaning,
Brian,
we're
which one
leaving
does that
100
come out
K
of?
in.
So the 500,000 one,
Okay, so the 5 will remain as 1.
I'll give you exact total, but I know it's 100,000, so we
Okay.
100, 125 to finish it.
Okay.
Okay, and then the second question, I guess, that what I had is when I'm looking at the, the pond bank maintenance, 100,000, given that we know the repairs as of last month average between $1,800 and $2,300. So I'll go into a medium of $2,000. $100,000 will give me 50 repairs. An average pond has 20 repairs.
See, I think that should go to at least 250,000.
Yeah, I agree.
At least 250.
What was just because we needed to come up with a lower amount? Okay, so yeah.
Okay, so that's
What
Lake
do we
Bank.
need, Brian? Just tell us what we need. What do we need?
Well, all depends if you get the SRF funding because you got 8 ponds
Let's
on there.
assume we don't.
Let's assume you
Assume
don't.
we don't.
What-
I'm sorry, assume we do. So that we know what the dollar value of that we're going to do that is not an SRF
Covered.
project. For example, all the point repairs. We have a ton of point repairs
Sure we do.
on ponds that, just like that lady was here a while ago. You know what's going to freeze before her pond is done? It ain't going to happen. That is out 10, 15 years the way we're going.
Well, $1,800 to $2,000 a washout, that's going.
That's a price, yeah.
So to me, if you get somebody on here and let's say we identify 5 ponds and they're averaging 15 to 20 washouts per pond,
$250,000.
250,
Easy.
okay, so then let's up that to 250 and then make that capital. Okay, Steven, you got that? The one that is 100,000, we're gonna up that to 250,000, make that capital.
Yes, all of our
She wants
waterways.
it. I love how it says she wants
I
it.
agree.
So the,
I wouldn't do anything else.
you better explain.
I wouldn't do anything else.
She wants it.
and this is
But the critical thing is, Chris, on your deal, is getting that roads and curbs. Those are things. Then the other one that we've got some liability on, and I haven't heard Bob chime in on it yet.
They're rated?
I'm still trying to figure out what you just.
This is
did
version
the other way
one.
around.
We'll get to it. Because we're gonna be doing this bathymetrics.
That's it.
I hope we don't do the bathymetrics like we did 7 years ago.
Oh,
And
83.
went out and did a bunch of ponds. All that's doing is collecting dust. We never implemented the aeration. I sit here and hear what Pelican is doing and what Pelican has done. They got an aeration in every single pond over there. How many do we have? 3, 4, 5? And the 8 are dinky ponds that mean nothing. We are gonna have to start budgeting money at that, and you're looking at 6,000
Okay.
bucks an acre.
If you bear with me just a moment, Ed.
Oh, I have another question for
If we
you.
look at the waterway management page on budget 4.1 or 4.2, whichever
4.1.
version you
4.1.
choose to
4.1.
do.
Page 4.
Okay, and we remove 300, 400, and $100,000.
Yes.
Now our new operating number.
Hold it. Okay,
Mhm.
we changed that.
We changed it.
We changed it 300, leave 100,
100?
Yeah.
move
Yeah, that's what I
4,
said for.
and then instead of moving 1, take the 1 out, but move it as 250.
So we're
So
taking,
you
the-
increased to 250
Increased it to 250.
and then you move
wh-
it.
which,
How much are we moving?
which
Just give me
you-
one
which you
number.
moved to 250?
How much are we taking out of the budget?
Okay, just out of the budget without increasing it, we're taking out 800,000.
800,000. Okay, that's exactly
No.
where I was. Okay.
No,
Where do we
Ed,
move to 250?
That's 3, 4, and 1, folks.
not 800.
Oh, okay.
Okay, give me a number, whatever it is. I
I'll give it
don't
to you.
care.
Hold on.
Okay, here's this one here.
Right.
So this,
Steve, question, who generates this form that's on these versions?
Which form?
All this stuff here?
I do.
Is there any way, please, put this in the format of our new assessment methodology such that it's in those categories so that we know what the amount of money is? I have to
If it's
go
capital,
through
I
every
don't care.
time and add.
I don't care
In other
about
words,
that.
how much of this
I'm
budget
just
is
talking about
waterway
the water
management?
operating budget,
How much
so
of this
this
is
is accurate.
Parks and Rec?
881.
How much of this is
300.
roads?
Okay.
So that we know
407.
that, because you got to do it to give it, to do the assessment calculation anyway.
3,
Is it acceptable to you if I
550.
just create a summary schedule? And
Oh,
not,
you're still on 4.
And list them?
It's not-
and no, summarize everything from this to the summary.
Well, what
schedule.
I was figured you might do is just, I looked at this as this thing under our new deal has essentially 4 accounts: revenue, waterway management, Parks and Rec, and roads.
Easiest way to do it is.
That's it. There isn't anything else. It falls in one of those categories.
Correct.
So we only need 4 to look at here with all the line items under each of the independent ones. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I can do it if that's what, the board wants to see, or I can do a substitute schedule. Keep in mind this, the budget then translates into your monthly financials. It's up to you.
Yep.
It's really, it's
Well-
board driven on how you
so-
want to see it. I have no preference.
Well, I was just trying to do it in accordance with our assessment methodology.
500.
Yeah, so what we do is the schedule that we create has a budget category column.
Even
Next to
100,000.
every row, it's put into a column.
Now, you could do that.
All right,
That would be another alternative.
100,000.
Just add another column out there,
This 100,000.
take the numbers over
this
under one of the 3
trash,
columns. You could do that.
But we're
We
adding
already do that, just a matter of how you. like to see it.
250.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
And we're gonna pull it out.
Yeah, so
But
that's
this
pulled out.
250 is in capital, not in.
Yeah.
yeah,
and we're
okay.
gonna pull it out.
Capital, capital. So this gets pulled out. This gets pulled out. This goes to capital. So you have 300, 400, 250.
Okay.
So 300, 500, all that gets pulled out.
Okay, so we are taking out of the operating budget for fiscal 2022 under the title of waterway management, $900,000. Some of it may go back in capital.
800. Taking 3 out, taking out 4, leaving 1, and taking out 1.
You leaving, Brian?
Yes.
So you're taking out 800,000.
Well, I
When you transfer it over to capital,
I understand.
You're
I'm
adding in-
Trying to
So
get the,
let me make sure my math is right. So stormwater system repair and maintenance, 300 gets taken out, moves to capital.
correct.
Stormwater pipe and catch basin cleaning, 400 gets taken out, moved to capital, 100,000 remains.
Correct.
Pond bank annual maintenance, 100 gets taken out,
Yes,
but increased to 250,000.
correct.
Okay,
Good deal.
and that's it, correct?
So
Steven, you got that?
1610 essentially goes to 810.
So that's
okay,
950,000.
Yeah, it goes to
Yeah,
150.
950,000, okay. Moves to,
And then Chris is going to
look at the.
do a quick calculation on what roads, curbs, and gutters that we know we're going to pay for next year. We're not going to get out from underneath that. The county's going to come to us and tell us, boys, you got to fix Gateway Boulevard. That is an accident looking for a place to happen. And we got other places that are bad too. But do your best on just getting the guesstimate, Chris.
And that's actually paving and curb and gutter to add into that capital.
And we're
borrowing.
talking about, that's expenses outside of what the county will cover because
It's trees.
it's trees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, just to be clear.
I have another question, and also
okay,
Brian.
well, if I can finish with
Okay.
the numbers. So at the end of the day, if we take this strategy, we are going to end up with an operating, an 01 general fund budget for everything in waterway management, including salaries and payroll taxes and all that stuff, $810,000
It's correct.
to manage 89 ponds.
Yeah, but
And
we've
wetlands.
got, But
And
we're not
wetland.
taking it out completely. We're taking it out of what we're assessing.
Right, we're operating. It's
Yeah,
our,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
our,
you understand. Yeah.
our daily.
So
in and
the
out
money will be
operating budget.
available. It's just
Some
different
other
funding
monies
source.
might be available, right?
Right, yeah.
But
different
this is
funding
what we're
source.
gonna operate. Okay, I would suggest to my board, that is woefully inadequate, considering that Pelican Preserve has a little bit more than half the ponds, and they're currently spending and have been spending 900,000 a year.
I have some line items specifically that I would like to talk about it, and that's why I want an explanation.
Look,
But
and I
His
can
his
give you-
question needs, or his deal needs an answer. And Bob, my response would be,
And here's
you
what
can't
all got
run
in
until
front
you
of-
learn to walk.
Well, but
That's where we're
everything
at.
we're trying to do is, I mean, we
Well-
keep bait and switching
well,
topics.
But let me make sure that I understand. this.
Okay.
So we have the 800 whatever revised in operating budget, but we'll have 950,000 in capital to work with in it as well.
So 1.7.
Plus roads.
So plus roads. So our
Don't worry about
our-
roads. I'm only focused on.
No, I'm
waterway
not talking about
management.
roads. So what I'm saying is for waterway management services, next year, we will have, what was the number, 800 and,
Around 1.7.
no, I
Total.
want to break it down. So in our operating budget, we will have 800 and some $1,000. In addition, we will have in our capital funding
Borrowing.
we will have an additional 950,000 allocated
And that,
for additional
That-
projects
and that
is
950
100%
is in addition
to the
to
800.
the 590 we currently have on this sheet, which is proposed capital projects.
Yeah. So
So
the,
for
No, it's
waterway
one-
management only, at this point, we have,
That's correct. You're right. You're correct.
590,000,
Yeah.
to which we are proposing that we add an additional
950.
950,000.
That is correct. That is correct.
so to your point, that 800 and some thousand isn't adequate for what was that? You're right. We have,
So we're
so
subsidizing.
we have 800 plus $950,000 in total.
Okay, we're
funding.
subsidizing, if we are allowed, we'll take it up to 1.54 million in capital projects. Now that gets us through 22.
Oh, it's a lot more than that. It's 1,122,500 plus 900 plus the roads. So you're gonna be about
Forget the roads, Ed.
2.3 million.
Stay focused on one little thing. Let's just talk about waterway management for the love of God.
Okay, waterway management then goes for 590 plus 950.
Correct, to $1.54 million.
Okay,
Okay, that's what we spend in 23. Now, I mean, 22. Now, here it is, calendar year 23. And how much money do we have of that 1.5 million in 23? We don't have anything. But we still have a budget that's woefully below. What we
Bob,
need
that's
to
my
operate.
point. Now this is why you need a capital reserve that goes out there, because this is gonna tell you right off the bat with that zero in 23, it's such a joke. Everybody knew it was a zero.
So I'm with you there.
We have to borrow more money.
Well, but there's going to be an end to the borrowing. Now, and
There
every
is
time
no
we
end.
borrow,
There is no end.
every time we borrow, we're raising their rates.
Every time you don't borrow, you're really raising their rates, because you're doing it with operating, we're doing it with amortized
Yeah.
money.
But
Big
it's still
difference.
money out of the resident's pocket.
I think,
A little bit at a
No, it's
time or
not.
a
It's
big
not even
chunk.
close.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Who's
Bob.
paying for these things?
We are.
Well,
Our
that's what I'm saying,
residents
the
don't want to pay cash. They want to do it debt finance, because the guy that comes here 5 years from now, if you do
Get
it your
everything for
way,
free.
I paid for it and he gets it for free. That's bull.
well, and
Nobody does
I
that.
think what we need to also look at too, whatever we put in capital, we don't want to be doing that same thing next year
But,
or the year
but
after.
that's what we just did.
No, you got
Because
to.
we're gonna be doing
Because
pipe-
next year, you're going to have 400,000 more
On a-
for more
For
ponds.
different ponds,
for
for
a different
different
pond.
ones. So we
But
just
what I'm
have to
saying
keep
is we're-
track
We're solving for.
Yeah. for specific ones,
Which-
and we have to keep a track of it.
This is why we're going for a multi-year bond validation, because you're going to be going to this and you're going to have a staggered P&I schedule every year, because some years you might borrow $500,000, some years you might borrow $2 million. It depends on how the service life comes up. If we fix all these ponds and get these point repairs,
We're going to float a capital expense every year for $500,000? Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
oh, no.
Well,
You've already got the bond. I'm assuming you're getting the bond validation. All you're going to do is you're going to the bank to borrow that X dollars to pay, and then you pay the principal and interest on that you borrowed to debt finance this for
Okay.
20 years.
Okay, I know we're going to be paid 20 years for the
Yes.
money we got.
Yes.
What I'm saying is the pot of gold runs out the first year you spend it. the next year, you're still gonna have the requirement for needing more money.
No,
You
the
debt
pot of gold,
finance
the
again
pot
next
of
year.
gold ran out for the projects you did in 2022. You're gonna redo it again in 2023, redo it again in 2024.
So you're
and
saying, yes, every year we're gonna go debt
Every
finance.
year. That's why I said the bond validation needs to be around, this is, guys, this is what these other utilities are doing.
Well, it
They're
seems
going
to
out
me at
20,
some
30,
point in
40
time,
million.
just paying off all these bonds we're borrowing will be greater than our ability to assess our revenue.
It will be greater because it's called interest. But the issue is, I pay it for tomorrow and I die the next day. The guy that comes in, buys my house, gets it free for 19 years. What's nice about that?
Well, it's the same as
It's
the
not
day you
fair,
bought
fair,
your house.
Nicole.
If you die the next day, somebody gets in and it's all there. I don't understand the logic of that.
Okay,
It's out of your pocket. I don't know anybody that wouldn't understand that. Why
Well,
do you
here's
want to
one.
pay, why do you want to pay for the use of something 10 years out when you may or may not even be here? Why are you doing that? It makes no sense.
so can we look at, is everybody comfortable with the line items? Because I have like feedback and questions in
Well,
numbers
let's go.
3.
So we've gotten past water management.
It's in underwater management.
Okay, look, call out any specific
Okay.
line items that you have.
So wetland plantings, we went from $1,000 for, how many wetlands do we have?
68.
$1,000? I mean, I was hoping
They're
that,
small plants.
yeah, I was hoping that was a, like, so those are things like, let's not do that. I mean, what is $1,000 gonna get us?
So is 10.5 the,
Where are you looking at? What line item?
The waterway management.
Some of those things
You didn't look,
I had a
but
question on those anyway.
yeah,
I'm more worried about the things that have
Well,
6
and
digits in it.
exactly. Well, but those are the things that the residents are,
okay.
Well, I'll tell you
So-
another one that the residents
Well,
are
yeah,
upset about. Go to littoral
well, let's go
maintenance
with
in
that one.
excess of
Let's
DO.
let's
So
start in
does
order.
anybody have an issue with adding the 10.5 back into?
Well, at least 5. And I want to ask either Elle or Chris or Brian, like the thought of going from, what was it?
Well, let's do this. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on 10 grand.
Okay,
I mean, if we all
10
agree.
grand?
So let's
Okay.
go back to, let's just do 10 even on that.
So you're moving wetland surveying, encroachment and
No,
disposal.
no,
wetland planting
planting.
from 1,000,
1,000 to 5,000?
no,
or
10,000. Yeah, we'll go 10. Okay, next item, Flavia.
The next one I have is littoral maintenance in excess of the DO. And honestly, I was not satisfied with that answer that the gentleman had COVID. Yes,
I'm sorry, which one again?
littoral maintenance in excess of,
That's tearing out the littorals, the maintenance costs of tearing out the littorals that are beyond the DO. That's gonna be a slap in the face to
Yeah.
the people in the community that they're gonna say, well, you solved that by you're not even gonna fund it. That tells me how far you're willing to go along with that. But I don't know what the number is. And had a number in there at the beginning and it got yanked out. What was it
Oh, I
in
have it here.
3.1?
and here's my question. I would be okay if it was that, if we had that report from the consultant that we finished.
Here.
And then I understand COVID, however, 2 weeks ago, however, that report was due 60 days prior of him getting COVID. So those are the things that I want us to
Brian
start.
had 125,000 for this one. See, here's another problem I didn't understand, Chris. Why did we arbitrarily, if we worked our butts off to create the plan, why did we, with a blink of the eye, take it out
Pull back on it.
and nobody knew about it? If you don't go through these things line item by line item that I've been doing for the last 3 days, you don't catch it. And it's like pulling teeth. We're the ones that are out on the limb that are going to get our heads chewed off. I don't think Brian appreciates that. Staff's got to understand the buck stops here. We've got to explain to them why we took the littoral maintenance out.
All right, so
I think we need a number back in, but
okay,
I don't know
But-
that
but then
125.
Can we
to
meet
me-
that in the middle and
to-
maybe go 50,000 for removal? and
Well,
see-
I'm willing to leave it blank with this. I wish if Chris, you can get a hold of that consultant and light a fire and we can get an answer by the 19th. Because if he says
Well, let's do it this way. Let's put the 50 in
50?
and we can always take it out.
yes, would you please get a hold of him and
He's supposed to be making a presentation, I think, at the next meeting, but it's a little
We
late
just
for
need a
budget.
yes or no, and he can give us a.
I agree with Flavia.
We need a yes or no or a summary, and he can give us a presentation after.
Okay.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
tentatively, we're gonna put 50 back in.
Is when we write in excess of the DO, are we talking about when they spray out, when your maintenance provider
Yeah,
sprays out?
it's purely a maintenance cost, purely.
Well, but what
You
I'm
never
Talking about
suggesting
spraying
is
or
that-
physical removal is what you're asking.
No, there's a big
No,
difference.
no.
And we should be paying only for spraying.
Right.
Spraying only.
That's what I
At
thought you
no
If you
cost.
do it the other, it's gonna be too expensive.
We never do it that way.
Yeah,
I'm just
it's
giving you
only
the Pelican
spraying.
experience. You don't need a nickel in here. You just hold the provider accountable to the contract. He's being paid to maintain it.
Wait,
Yeah,
If it
but
gets
he's
too
not,
big,
this is, Bob, this is not in the
well,
contract.
that's why I asked.
It's not in the contract right now. It's not in the contract. This is in addition to the contract.
The contract is 25,000. See above, right above it?
This is
So
one
you're
of the
paying
arguments
double
we had
for-
when we did the
So-
contract. They didn't
so
put that in.
To maintain it for the contract, you pay 25,000. To cater to residents' requests because they don't like the aesthetic of the authorities behind the house, you're gonna pay 50,000. That's summary what this is. Because you're catering to the residents' aesthetics wants. So, but
I don't
that,
know how I feel about that.
I don't feel, that's why,
I don't know.
I
That's-
don't pay it in Pelican and never have in
that's,
12
that's
years.
that's exactly what it is. And that's why I wanted to, that's why we agree. And I remember
What is the
holding,
pond standard?
I remember, well, the pond standard saying that they can if they follow certain criterias and if, and so forth, but they're not being held in account. And I remember holding on to this.
The
If we
best
pay
with
this
the story.
consultant, are you gonna agree with his, with what his findings are? So
The provider.
the provider,
Whoever
whatever,
it is, Aquagenics,
The big one is, if we
They
put
should be
50 in, we'll
doing
hear
it
what
at
this
no
guy has
cost.
to tell us.
Okay,
regardless.
So that's a pending item. We'll put it in. We need to take it back out, or if we have more conversation.
but that's
on
what it is.
What our
It's a
philosophy
small item.
is and how we
What
interpret
is
the
a small
concept.
item, but it's double the
emblematic.
contract amount.
It's emblematic. We pay for more crap we shouldn't be paying for over here.
Don't
Exactly.
disagree with you. And that's why we have to do a better job at our contracts.
Yeah, so as long as we understand that the contract is 25,000 and the 50,000 is solely for requests of residents that do not like the aesthetic of the vegetation that's behind the house and they are within the guidelines of the standards that we created, the development order is not required and so forth, so forth, so forth. So it's
And-
totally a aesthetic.
Understand
thing.
what you're saying, Flavia, totally agree with you. But our practice has been rob Peter to pay Paul when we have a fire someplace else and something will get hacked.
Well,
That's what we have done for
Rebid
years.
the contract with the language in it we want, period.
Well,
Solves the problem.
the one thing that I think we've been trying to do for a couple of years now, and we've done it some cases, and I think we need to continue. But if we want to be the district we want to be tomorrow, we have to stop being the district that we are today.
I
So
agree.
at some point, we have to draw a
I
line.
need to take a quick break, back dramatic, the study, I think Ed can hold this one. Thank
And
you.
Marty,
Ed,
you
Al?
just,
I just had a question. Are you working off of version 4.1?
4-1.
Yes, 4-1,
4-1.
4-1, 4-1.
So you're increasing the higher.
No, because we pulled out $950,000
Yeah.
out of the,
But
At
to
a
answer your
4-1.
question, we are increasing certain items in that one, but they are being offset by the transfer to debt financing.
So it won't be at 28%.
No,
no, because we basically, and we started with 4-1 because it was a little truer to our,
what we did before, I know this is what I didn't understand why this got so complicated, is I thought we had it down till we had a budget that was somewhere going to be around 18%. I
17,
thought that
18,
was
yeah.
real good. And then this one came back and numbers were flip-flopped all over the place. And then we were using reserve money. What happened? I don't remember talking about all that.
4-1 was, I guess in our opinion, was a little truer to what our direction was.
Yes.
4-2 was another version, using some alternate funding, pulling some additional things out. So we went back to 4-1 as opposed to working off 4-2 because it was a little bit more in line with,
And that's what got a little lost. So
no, it's, completely understandable. I think I've been lost about 4 times since I've been sitting up here in the time
Sorry,
period.
Doug.
No worries. Okay, so let's get back to any other, you said bathymetric.
Yeah,
We're good on that.
Yeah, go up a little bit above that.
we have 0.
We have.
No,
three
it's
items.
over
Oh, in
in
capital.
your debt. It's over in your,
Capital, okay,
capital.
never mind.
We have 3 items under the heading of area. We got maintenance, R&M, and electrical repairs for $125,000 a year. That's what we're projecting for 8 aerators, 8 ponds.
So maintenance, R&M
Just reading these
25,
numbers, Yeah,
Is,
electrical 50.
okay.
let's see, I don't know if I can,
Pelican Preserve where all 15 operate.
Pelican Preserve, this is the overall big meeting. This isn't just.
Yes.
Okay.
The total there is less than 100,000. And we're comparing
Well, then,
what
then
Pelican pays to this.
where did these numbers come from then?
I have no idea. It didn't come from me. All I'm saying is we've only got 8 ponds. Good Lord.
I don't know where these numbers came from then.
I know the electric repairs on the bottom, even though it's 8, they have to totally redo the services and cabinets for those 8.
So the aerator R&M is replacement?
So that should be
Repair
capital
man,
then.
right?
Okay, the replace, yeah, and then I know the replacements, we just did one, it's 1 unit, 2 head, $7,000, one. Is that about around?
Well,
What
that
do you-
make,
For
well,
a
8
totally
times 7
new
is 56.
cabinet with
so that's
about
pretty close.
4 compressors, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so 7, yeah, so 7, so that tells you how many you're gonna get there,
But all I'm going to say is if
3.
what Chris described is capital, it's not an operating budget.
So-
The operating budget should be a lot less than that
So we
when
can,
you're only talking about miscellaneous repairs and electric.
Yeah, those 3 numbers, 50, 25, and 50. This is the problem. We have no backup data. We have no idea what we're looking at here. I mean, we're just pulling this stuff out of our backside.
Well, that's why I gave everybody the Pelican budget. I mean,
So
we got
Chris,
10
can you
years.
circle back with staff when it comes to aerators? Let's pin down what is true maintenance and what's capital. And if it's capital, let Stephen
Take it
know
over.
and
Let Steve know.
add it to the capital
Good.
side.
I think that's a good idea.
I would seriously doubt the true maintenance over 25 grand.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
disagree. Okay, what else you got?
We're not putting any money in for bathymetric. Did we spend 100?
No,
Okay.
it's already
Capital.
over in capital.
Already in capital.
Okay.
Did you get this capital?
Well, what
sheet
did we
that-
get for 118,000 last year? In the 2020 budget actual,
I don't think we,
Was
118,332.
That's because we put it in the budget and didn't spend it, did we?
No, there was no bathymetric work done last year.
Yeah, where'd that come from? That's 2020,
That's what I said last year.
No,
This is
the year before.
2021.
the year before
2021.
last year. This
The year
is
before.
21.
21, we didn't do anything. 2020, there was 118.
What did we do in 2020?
That's what I'm,
We didn't do anything.
We didn't, I think we budgeted but didn't do it. Because there was some other,
Well, this
there
is
was some other
actual,
things that
though,
we,
is the
there
problem.
wasn't, there was something we needed to do and we put it in and we,
We've transferred it probably.
so I think it,
all right, we can blame that on Margaret.
I think you may be right.
We can blame Margaret for that.
uh,
Okay, thank you.
okay, anything else under waterway?
I think that looks good.
Okay. Is there any additional items in any other category that we need to discuss?
I have a question into page 5,
I
dog
have
park.
that minimal.
Yeah, same here. What is just dog park?
Dog park.
It's right underneath signage.
But
It's
there's
just regular R&M, just maintenance work. They
Oh,
just
so we're
add
gonna,
Anything new that they need, like the
Well-
$4,000 they spent on the
Well,
fence.
0 right now.
Yeah.
well, maintenance and new is 2 different things. So maintenance, we're gonna have 0.
There's no maintenance in dog park right now.
Yeah, so that means like we expect like nothing to break.
The dogs are gonna have to live with it for a while.
Apparently. Okay, so let's be realistic and let's see how much money are we going to put that
I
there.
think the common sense was they looked at all the work they'd done, the fence, the
So they
gutters,
won't need
everything in
anything.
there, and they were like, we don't have anything we need to do besides clean it.
Okay.
I didn't see anything on pool, special events. The only thing I saw was on roadway and sidewalk surfaces, is if that maintenance and repair of 75,000
Okay,
is part of your 387, Chris, I suppose, then it would be capitalized, but I didn't know what you had in mind for 75,000.
Which comment, which category are you looking under?
Roadway sidewalk services, page 7. That was another one that could have easily gone over, but I didn't get into that detail. If I did anything, I'd say take that 75 out and then put in capital, whatever number you feel needs to be there, and be done with it.
Okay.
no, what,
Yeah, you're looking at maintenance, repairs, roadway, sidewalk services. Yeah, and the reason we didn't put that in, that's more if we were gonna go grind the sidewalk down or do a minor
Yeah,
repair,
just-
not a total
Just if
replacement.
if that's the case and that's what the number is, fine, but if there is something that falls in capital, let's
Capital,
move
move
it to
that
capital.
out.
Go ahead. You have another
Let me go
thing?
back to the dog park, because there's two. So I know there's maintenance and repairs for the dog park that also went to zero, but then there's dog park that went to zero. So there's two line items. One that we
Where?
spent under page 5.
Yeah.
Plant replacement is zero.
Well, that too. So if you look right underneath
Yeah.
signage, so dog park, I want to know what that line item is, just dog park with no explanation. What is just dog park?
Yeah, that should be repair and maintenance on it, because you see you have an irrigation repair and maintenance dog park, and then repair and maintenance, which is general for the parks.
I think what he's saying is he does not anticipate any general R&M for the dog park.
That's-
But then there's two, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There's one
that's-
here and then there's one here for
Yeah.
dog park. And they're both.
This one?
Yeah.
That's not dog park.
Yes, it is.
No,
It's
it
under
says-
the dog park.
The one
No, no,
says,
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think this one's, this
That's
third,
dog park.
it is zero anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's
But
what
what Chris, Flavia brings up, above soccer fund park maintenance repairs, there is a big one that says maintenance repairs. And before, in 21, it was 20,000. And we got it as zero. What was that?
those general parks, whether it's the fun park, the pool, the soccer park, general parks
So-
and recreation.
So we don't have
So
anything underneath there.
maintenance and repair, that standalone item, that's a slush fund.
It's general park maintenance, and right now we have it as zero.
So we're not gonna do any maintenance or repairs
on the
to
soccer
any of
field, on
our
any other
fun,
parks,
any of our
anything.
park locations.
That's-
Well, as you see, there are items that are moved, like there is maintenance and repair. They broke it out.
But you've broken it out
Soccer and fun
individually.
park, right.
It's 30,000.
And I think that probably
So
comes
that
back
was
to
more of a, I guess,
100,000 because
A
you have to,
miscellaneous
Oh.
maintenance as opposed to the line items that they have for the specific
Okay.
facility location.
yeah, they total the same thing.
So,
It just
I mean,
broke it out for the
So
facility.
bottom line, general maintenance, miscellaneous maintenance for the dog park is zero.
Correct.
And I guess if there's nothing anticipated, if something does come up, we'll have
We
to
got
figure it out.
We got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, they take it out of the R&M for the Parks and Rec.
Something I do want us to be thinking about, and Brian's not here, but the dollars for this is in the budget. I confirmed that with Laura and with Brian. It's not specifically identified in this manner, I don't think, but when it comes to our actual budget meeting, I'm gonna make a motion that we create a new kind of business unit or management responsibility, which is pulling parks, landscaping, and facilities out of public works. So under Brian, it's really Tim. So it's Tim and Jim. Yep, Tim and Jim,
You mean a staffing change?
a staffing
Oh,
change,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Which it would be a manager level. So we would have 4 business units. We'd have business management, utilities, public works, and park, landscaping, and facilities. Facilities in this definition really is parks and rec facilities, including pools, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And we would create a management level position. It'll be a slight increase in compensation. What I would recommend, and I've talked to Tim, he would be interested in assuming that position. Makes perfect sense. It also gives us more management oversight, specifically in landscaping, which I think we need more management oversight in that area. Because to me, it's one of the biggest opportunities for us to,
So you're gonna pull it out of a combination of roads and
pull it out of public works,
public works. It's still public works.
Yeah. but have it as its own standalone business unit or department.
Chris, I noticed another one that got yanked out that I thought was in, and I think it is a good idea, but where is our embarrassing road out in front of this place? I thought we were
Capital,
putting that
The
in.
120, I
If you,
saw
if
that.
you do that road deal and you add, for God's sakes, add that in. This is an embarrassment.
And that, we had that in at 150,000.
Yes,
Right in
I think
front.
that needs to be put in. It's an
Right in the
embarrassment.
front?
Right out front
Yeah.
here. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
That or I send a bill
Gosh, and it
for
would
park
really be nice to have
suspension.
another entrance over here, but that's maybe future
That's
consideration.
how to do it. I think it looks pretty good now, guys.
Stephen,
Yeah.
just based on what we've said today, do you have any idea of how, what do you think it'll adjust that, the
Right.
4/1/28
Yeah, now, just for clarification, I will have to redo the capital plan, and I'll have to redo the interest amount. Again, we're assuming that we get the same favorable rate, all of this stuff we talked about is acceptable and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Right now, without me doing that, single family has got a 9.76% increase. Multifamily is about 21%. I'm just rounding for you. I'm going down the categories on your assessment. Stony Brook Inside Gate is about 16%. Going into commercial, we actually have 2 commercial categories that are now negative.
That's too cheap.
Yeah.
$300,000.
And I think that's because they're probably getting a lot of water.
Well, I tell you,
So we're not really looking
I
at
think you have
4.2
a-
whatsoever, right?
No.
no.
I did not
no.
even want to look at it. Okay, then I have one more
And so,
question.
and that's with
to add.
taking, 4/1 did not have any reserve.
No reserves.
No reserve.
And we'll use that
If that,
reserve
if this
for a
works,
safety factor.
now, so Bob, to your point, if this works and we do have some things to consider for next year, it puts us in a very favorable position. Matter of fact, it puts us in line with where we've been the last 3 years, which keeping the assessment in single digits.
I'm not worried about that yet.
So, and that's,
Fine.
I'm much, I like the second part of that. It keeps it in single digit and we did our job.
so, I mean, that's,
What I would like to do though, is really home in on the next 3 years capital reserve plan such that we can do what we just did, project it out the
Well,
next 3
now
or
what we're-
4 years, now that we know
well, what
what
we're gonna have is, we can't just do 3/5.
No.
We have to do, let's say 3/5, 10,
10,
20-year
20.
plan.
Oh, we need that,
Yeah, so,
definitely, yes.
because we can't debt finance for 20 years if we don't have a plan for that. And I think in doing that exercise, we will identify things that we have put in capital that we may have, like the cleanouts. That's, if we do a 10-year rotation, we need to.
I
out.
would strongly argue for a max 5-year rotation. I don't care what the engineering books was. Our real world experience is 5 is the max.
Well, down here, you're probably right, because what we run into with this silt.
The
buildup
sandy
and all
soil
that.
Well,
and everything
and
down
once we go through it once, we can identify, okay, which is our problematic areas
Yes.
and what is the root cause
And
for that.
we're reaching that
Yeah,
point right
so,
Because, well, the problem we're reaching is that our water levels right now are 7 inches over control. And we are already having, when we get rains, I was gonna bring that up to Brian, we're already people having water in the streets already.
and
we
just,
haven't had
this is a
And
small.
we haven't had that much rain, but they're full.
This is a small expense, but in light of the presentation from last week, I do think we need to incorporate the cameras in the
Absolutely.
community.
I
And that,
agree.
and that cost on that, and we would do, I think, 3
locations of 6
6
cameras.
locations, 6 cameras, and the, whatever the,
The 1 or 2.
Now, that would have to be, that
oh,
would,
and
you
Pelicans
can't
as well, I'm
capitalize those because those only have about a 5-year service life.
Well, why not? If you're just replacing the whole thing. Because that goes, Ed, you can
Because
say,
you're- No, you stay with the concept. You do a 20-year deal with something that's got a 20-year
oh,
life.
yes, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
Stay
okay,
with
okay,
that.
all right.
But it doesn't mean we can't go out and borrow it on a 5-year.
It's-
Well, it's not that
It's-
expensive. What is it, like
it's-
$6,000?
I'm
Yeah,
telling you,
yeah.
not your account.
these
Yes,
banks,
okay.
these banks do it up north. These banks do that
Right
all the time.
I-
They do it all the time.
Sounds like New York,
Yeah,
California.
at least I did it, like, that's the same
One second, let me-
thought process that you had
They
before.
smile every time they see you coming.
I'll bet they
Let me
do.
make sure I have the numbers right. So 3 and 2 at Pelican, so 5 total.
Well,
I'm
wait.
sorry. You need
2
two
a
of those, so
Pelican,
10.
or you're gonna need 4 a Pelican? Are we gonna go
Oh,
ahead?
We're gonna do the front entrance.
You don't
we're
want
not gonna-
you don't
no,
want
we
your
don't wanna do
emergency
the-
entrance?
Don't want to do the emergency.
So each location has 2
You don't want
cameras.
regular
So
people, you don't want us
6.
finding out that regular people are
So we
using
need
that?
8.
Good luck with that.
So Chris, we need 8
That's what
cameras
you want.
in cost. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I've got
Four-
the quote.
four times
That's $2,500 a unit. So.
yeah, so it's not,
Well,
$25,000 basically.
we just did these exact ones he's talking about, and we did 4 units, a little over 16,000.
So 6 units for
And
25.
these firms run it 2 different ways. One of them, you're buying, the other one,
You just
they
lease it.
install it, they maintain it. You
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
the way to go.
whatever,
That- yeah.
whatever, well, I would look at whatever the officer's recommendation is. If he has two and he's fine with either one, then you just find whichever one,
Yeah.
whichever.
We don't want
One you
more
like
work
best.
for staff, so let them maintain it. And then I do have one more question for all of us. In regards to the holiday event, like, or anything like that, because I did receive a few questions. I got actually not emails, but I did get a few texts, like, are we gonna have it? And honestly, I didn't have an answer for it.
Well, here's my point on that. Like, I think the holiday party is great, but you know what I really felt like the community is missing is July 4th. We did the fireworks for Christmas and it was awesome, but it is so difficult to go and find someplace where you can see fireworks. Well, yeah, but what I mean is, like, I don't take my kids to go see fireworks anymore because it's such a pain in the ass to get wherever and get back.
Yeah,
And
traffic.
And I'm so old now, my patience is, it's crazy. My
So-
wife have to drive, so I can.
So I thought about that, because we have.
But I like the idea of doing like a July 4th
So you
in the
could do
community. It would do two things. One, it might draw more people to one central location.
Well, you'd almost
Well-
have to do it at the park because that's the only place where you got enough safety
And
factors
the
of
soccer
how.
field.
We had it at.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that would be a nice community event. I almost think you'd get a larger turnout on July 4th than you do Christmas, but I
Well,
mean,
your thing is you're gonna have more people here from the Northerners in Christmas than you do in the summertime. Do what?
The soccer
Probably,
field.
I'd probably do it out here. It's a little safer.
Soccer field.
Now-
Because if it lands in Timber
We
Creek,
had it the
Well, that's what I was
one,
gonna
that's
say.
their problem.
when we did it last time, there was nothing back there. Now we got Timber Creek, so we'll have to figure out how we can charge them for the show.
Yeah.
But
They'll pay for their own fire protection.
yeah, no, we couldn't do it.
We
from-
might look for sponsors like.
Oh, yeah, we
Denny
could-
Brown,
oh, yeah.
Gardner
And
all
we
that.
used to for the, because I remember I used to, before I joined the board and before I joined all the other committees, I used to try to get checks, and I used to be really good at it, from the commercial properties and residents for the holiday. So I saw that we do have $12,000 for holiday decorations.
Maybe we just
In here?
reallocate, we say 12,000 for events.
And that's what
And
I was
then we
gonna say.
determine how we're gonna spend it. Because I almost think too, in this new position, to be quite honest, so parks, landscaping and facilities, that person, we look at,
I don't have a problem with that.
doing some
Yeah,
events
this-
or whatever. And I think July 4th, whether it's something for summer or Christmas, I mean, it's good for the community for us to pull people in.
So then do we want to just rename that instead of saying holiday event, just events?
Yeah, so let's just rename
rename
holiday events,
Events.
line item just to events, district events.
Because it says holiday lighting and decorations. Events, we actually have zero. So the
So
holiday
somebody
lighting
needs
and
10,000, they
decorations.
know where to go.
Well,
to
holiday
get it.
lighting decoration, that's the
Well, it could be 4th
lights.
of July. I don't need, it's good enough. That's-
Well, no, Doug, I want to make sure we understand this. For holiday, we have zero money. For holiday events, we have zero.
Right.
For movie events, we have zero. For special events, we have zero. The only money that we have is holiday lighting and decoration.
Okay, and that is for lights and decoration. So if we want to put something for events, I think maybe we just say like 10,000 in there
Just, okay,
in
add-
events. So
add-
general
add a line
events,
item.
whatever general events, Steve, let's just put 10K in there.
Okay, so between now and the next meeting, am I gonna see version 4.3?
Yes.
And I hope it says final behind it.
Version 5?
You're only getting one version. I'm not doing two versions anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You're only
Steve.
getting one.
And we appreciate, look, we appreciate the effort for that because it really did allow us to look at it
Yes.
from two different points of view.
What frustrated me, and this could be a lot simpler, and I know it's simpler for us, it's not for you. But when, how, that very first page inside would be an errata on deals, only this one is changes. And we list every line item that we changed from the previous one, so we don't have to go look for it. It took me forever trying to, I understood what you did on one. But then when I went to two, I know two is going to be the same as one, except for one thing. It was either capital or you use the reserve. Then all of a sudden I found you were changing line items inside again. Why?
Yeah, Ed or Doug?
Being highlighted, Chris, what I don't understand is, why did we do it?
Reduce the budget.
That's
under
exactly
20
the answer I wanted to hear.
under 20.
Yeah.
It was to try to lower money and we're
I don't
trying
like
to do
it.
I don't want that anymore. Don't
Hey,
try.
Doug,
Tony, go Tony.
what I would suggest is, because the budget that was approved for purposes of setting the public hearing was the one that was adopted way back when. It was approved for purposes of setting the hearing. That's what's been on the district website. What I would suggest is that when Stephen prepares this revised version, this version 4.3, that it be edited from the original document as opposed to all these other iterations. That way the public sees what was started off and what we're ending up with for discussion, because what's been advertised is the one that was approved by the resolution, which is the big one.
Yeah, that's what he was shaking his head. It's going to be version 5 and he's going to do just basically what you said.
And
Okay,
Tony-
thank you.
Tony, do we need a motion from the board to have version 5 generated with the changes made at the meeting tonight?
No, I think that's a consensus of the board because the action won't be taken until you get to the, the final hearing.
What is our vote date?
19.
6 o'clock a week from Thursday.
Okay, so we don't.
So,
we-
Stephen, are you comfortable? I'm comfortable with just a consensus of the board that they create a version 5.0
okay,
and
well,
that be posted on the website, as well as take the original budget that was approved 2 months ago for purposes of setting the public hearing and showing the changes from that original one to the 5.0.
If Chris makes the capital change to cover our butts on roads, curbs and sidewalks, I don't have any problem with this budget at all.
And so what the expectation is as soon as we can get it, is the updated version of the budget based on what we determined today.
And the capital.
And an update to the capital plan.
Yep.
And that the capital plan that would just be distributed to us. I don't know if we need to make that.
I'd make it so that people see what we're talking about.
Okay.
The only thing I'd love to do, but I just don't think Chris has time. I'd like to see it projected out at least 3 or 4 more years, but we don't have time.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something we definitely need to look
well,
at over the next.
It would also be extremely helpful if we had a sense of whether our plan is going to float, or the items that we are proposing to capitalize, will they be accepted by the bank?
Well,
Is that-
and again, bank engineer.
Yep. So that's.
Our
so we-
engineer?
So
Our
part of the
engineering got a problem.
part of the follow-up is the items that we identified today. We need to have Tetra Tech review it, just to make sure they're in agreement. And staff, if it's the board's direction to capitalize those items based on our definition, we need staff's review
if we can hear,
alignment with.
if we can hear on the
board
19th
direction.
that it has passed Tetra Tech and in line with what staff is looking to do, then the only variable that we have in the future would be the bank.
Correct.
The guy is going to give us money.
Yeah, just keep in mind, bank, whether it gets capitalized, whether a bank will give you money, 2 different things. One,
All we care about is, okay,
you need the money and you need your people.
And as I,
Valid project.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something before you
Yes,
vote
go
on
ahead.
them?
Absolutely.
Uh,
We're not voting on anything.
Well, I respect the right and the need of the supervisors to work on this budget. I think that the best that we ought to do is decide what kind of an increase we can live with for next year and let the professional staff implement.
I think what we're trying to look at is staying true to historically what we've done, which is try to stay in single digits. But I think, that's what we want to try to
we've
do
laid the path that we should be able to do it with this foundation.
within next year.
The shock will be, the bank says, no.
Yeah.
But then if they deal to where you don't worry about what it's going to cost, you're going to have somebody telling you you're going to do it anyway. And that's the problem we've had.
sounds like a roundabout.
So,
Sounds like a roundabout.
so I think we're just wrapping up. Is there any final comments before we adjourn?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I was muted. Again, I'm not sure if you heard all of what I suggested and if Stephen concurs that we have the original approved budget has to stay on the website. In that Stephen prepare a version 5.0 that addresses the consensus of the board from today and shows all the edits. And also secondly, with regards to the engineer's review, again, when the project description is being provided in the engineer's report for any validation, the engineer needs to be comfortable saying these are the opinions of probable costs for these capital projects. So it is important. It's not just the bank, is that I think Stephen's trying to get that across. That, and also in Stephen's email, he cited from both GAAP, but also from the governmental accounting, auditing, and financial reporting sort of a narrative. So just those are just.
Well, Tony, there's two reports. There's two reports, one for the bank and one for the bond validation.
No. When we do the engineer's report for the validation, it's a borrowing validation. And when we go to borrow after that, whether we issue bonds, whether we issue notes, whatever borrowing we do that's more than 5 years, the engineer's report is the engineer's report from the validation. Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, then Steve's got me a little confused. I thought that to go to Iberia or any of our banks to confirm that we want 2 million, 5 million, whatever number to do this deal, they want an engineering report.
You're asking me, does the bank want the official report?
No, I'm not talking about bond validation report.
No, you're talking about the bank.
Yeah, the bank, Iberia.
I don't know that they're gonna request it.
Oh, okay,
They're gonna
okay, well
want
then,
details.
okay.
But what Tony is saying is that this ultimately is gonna lead to your validation, so everything's gotta.
Oh, yeah, that's all got to tie together.
So
Yes.
if your engineer is not going to produce that report for the validation, then you're not gonna take that to the bank. It's gotta all set
Oh, yeah,
up.
yeah, I know.
So it's gotta all be aligned.
The only thing that we've got for the engineer that he can't do his job right now is we don't have a 20-year reserve plan to basis the amount of money that we want to ask for on that validation. That's what we need more than anything.
Right, and so that's probably something we need to address at the final is what do we have in place today and what do we need to be looking at as far as a reserve plan?
Chris has got a good start with that deal. He goes out to 37, so I think we need to take it to 41, which would be 20 years, and just start filling in the blanks.
And what that was on our assets and also with our utilities.
And you just took straight line
And we
depreciation.
projected it out, and really the purpose was
And here's what I tell you, I totally agree. And I just don't necessarily like doing the work twice, and I'll tell you what, I started the same thing. So I guess that's my point, like putting it all
Well,
together.
we're all doing
Well, what
it.
I would
That's
say,
good.
well,
That
let
makes
me-
me feel good if
and
everybody's doing one.
I've always appreciated the amount of interest that the board
So
takes.
I like to
in certain
piggyback on
areas.
your work.
But what I
sometimes.
would say is, one thing we have to do a better job at doing, so things that we have special interest in, get with staff to make
Mhm.
sure, is there something already in play before we start working? Because I know we all jump in and do different things at different times because sometimes our priority and motivation is maybe ahead
Well,
of staff.
this is what bugs me, Doug. I'm gonna be straight with this. We waited way too long to be doing this, and I'm a little upset, Steve, with you and with our accounting people. They knew damn good and well we needed this stuff. Why haven't we been told, get your capital reserve projections out, guys? We've never done it. We've just kicked it down the road.
Well,
and the reality has been in the past, the reason we didn't do it is because we've had people who didn't want to know the facts.
Well, here's the question. I guess we're saying that we didn't, and I wasn't in this board before, so I think it would be fair to ask Steven, maybe he did. Maybe he did tell the board before, and then we are the one that are making the decision.
if
So
he-
maybe he told the board, and then the board said, you know what, we don't want anything to go up. We're not doing it right now.
And that's a good
And
point.
I'm
If
gonna
he did-
ask
if
you
he
that
did
question,
then
is that-
shame on us.
Well, again, to be honest, we go through this every year. We review this every year with the staff. We talk about, Chris's team has done more, but every year we talk to them about reserves. We talk to them about the capital plan. We tell them, you gotta do more, you gotta fill this in, you gotta tell us everything. We brought this in front of the board, so to say.
Can't hear you.
Gotta get the speaker there.
To say we haven't done it is not true. To say that there hasn't been maybe the action that you would prefer, that's valid. But this has been going on every year, and we've been having these discussions. This is just the first year where, again, it's gone to the next step.
Well, this one that Chris created, and keep in mind, the one Chris created is only for 001. That's it. And it's a monster. It is a monster, especially when you get into this building and that type of stuff. You start figuring out and plotting those things with whether you have a 25-year life, a 30-year life, a 10-year life, whatever. That has nothing to do with the bank. That has to do with the amount of money you've got to have to get to a point. Now, you can make an assumption that you are not going to 100% create a capital reserve. We can do that. We can just say we're going to finance it 50%. A lot of HOAs are doing that, and now they're getting their butts bit big time. But we have that call. I think what we need is we need to see the number at 100%.
Okay.
See what the scare number is with it,
Mhm.
and then come back and
The
as a
true
board
number.
say, hey, guys, 100% financing of capital reserve is it's going to generate, I can tell you from our HOA, is going to generate large 7-digit numbers.
And just to
And it'll
follow,
scare people.
yeah, to follow up on that point, several years ago, the district actually hired an outside consultant.
I remember that, and that's why I
who
brought it
came
up.
in here and did exactly what you said, put all the charts up on there,
Mhm.
did it all the way out, had everything you're talking about was in there. Now, so it's not.
On 001 or just utility?
No, this was on 001,
Okay.
because at the time, we were having some of the same discussions and
Do
there was
you-
a concern.
I must have, God, I forgot
You
that.
weren't
This
on
was
the
before
board.
you were on the board.
You weren't on the board yet.
But,
I
I
remember.
think this Christmas before you.
Who's got it?
I may have a copy actually,
Yeah, I'll have
because
to
I
go
was
through.
I was
So
attending.
again, I'm just saying, it's not like this hasn't been
Well,
done.
I'd like to see that. I might help you,
yes.
Chris.
And there's a philosophy that we need to take, and this is something we need to be pushing as the board to our partners and our vendors. We need you to hold us accountable. And I think in the past, kind of going against the board or calling things out might have been something that was frowned upon. But this board needs you to push and raise up. You need to have this, raise it as a risk to the board. I need, engineering to take opinion sometimes that is maybe not favorable to the board. I mean, part of why I think the last couple years the board has really been productive is we don't always agree. Like 80-90% of the time we're on the same page, but it's okay for us for
we talk it.
to have a difference of
We talk
opinion.
Yes.
It's good. That's
And
good.
That is good. The thing with Chris that I think was probably more beneficial than anything that we have done on this budget is getting staff to create that number. Whether you agree with the way it went out, the fact was to this community, it was a wake up.
Yeah.
Made them aware.
It made them aware. And now we got people talking and understanding. And when you sit there and talk to people and tell them, the best example, and it fell in our laps, was Daniel's Preserve. There's $500,000 that we could just tell the people in Daniel's Preserve, if I were you, I'd buy a boat and get a bucket. You got a problem.
Mhm.
We didn't do that. We have to spend $500,000 and fix it. And there's a lot of Daniel's Preserves issues in this community.
And one of the things that I would have liked.
And so I like the way we got to where we're at wasn't the smoothest, but I think if we would have done it with the cookies and cream, it would have been all whitewashed and nobody would have ever understood it.
And what I would have liked to see happen is I would have liked to seen members of staff push back on reduction. I think they were really too quick to pull numbers out.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if it was me and
Stick
you're
to your
asking me to manage an area, and I know next year in order to do that properly, it would be $500,000, and I just reduce it to 250 because I think that's what the board wants, then I'm putting my job at risk because I'm not delivering on the quality. I would have expected staff to push back and say, board, I want to present, I'm going to get in front of you, I'm going to say, look, in order to reduce this budget, I would have to take out $250,000, and I'm not comfortable. It's going to put the community at risk, and it's not in line with the direction that
I
we're
agree
taking.
100%. And that
Totally agree.
conversation I had, and that's why I think it was important. We didn't have any
And then
pushback.
let us battle
Oh,
the residents.
Yes.
But staff needs to be accountable for their areas. And I applaud them for trying to be accommodating with the budget. But a part of me says, God, I wish they would have just pushed back and say, I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Because I
And then
started,
let us make the hard decision.
I questioned, because then I went back and I was there for 4 hours. I was questioning. I said, well, what is it? Did you really need a 600? And now I said, now you're going to have to show me every single penny and every single paperwork to add to that 600. And then, how did you cut so much?
I've got a 513 quiz. 513 quiz. Bob, how much is in the 001 reserve?
I have no idea.
Doug, how much is in the 001 reserve?
001.
I'll say
I
the
don't know.
embarrassment. I don't think any of us have a clue. How much money do we have? I don't have a clue. Because we were willing to pull almost $1 million out of it.
Yeah, let me pull that up. I know you've got, your financials.
It's
has it.
scary to ask this question at this point in time, but I don't know the answer.
Seemed like I thought there was six.
I know it's over $1 million because we were
I thought it was
using $1
I thought
million.
it was 601 and then 3.
I could have sworn one of our budget work, the first workshop, we presented slides, or we were going to, that had that in there. Let's see if I have.
Well, I can remember from years ago, Pelican, stupid reserve was 2 or 3 times what the district had.
I have no clue, but I have an idea.
Do you know
No,
what
I
it
don't
is?
know.
Nope.
She's got a SEG here. The reason I bring it up is that there's another way you can kill this cat, and they do it up north, is use that reserve to cover you on cash flow issues on
Oh
your
my
PI
God.
payments.
Never, never, never.
No, I wouldn't,
Yeah,
because that's
we
what
actually
we,
had a budget slideshow. We
I thought it
never
was
quite
1.6,
got to it.
so, but I
but
don't want to say without knowing exactly.
Between $2 and $2.5 million is in the general fund reserve pending the year-end results. And then Pelican has 3.4. That's assigned reserves,
Why don't we just
including.
borrow from Pelican?
Well,
we steal.
but Pelican's on the wrong track because they went into the reserve last year and they're doing it this year.
I
I'm
would
gonna go
not
to
do
the
it,
PPAC
Bob, I
meeting.
think you didn't hear me. I would not do it to pay for capital expense.
Well, that's what
I
they're-
used to cover or debt retirement,
Yeah, that's appropriate,
debt retirement.
but not operating expenses.
Oh, no.
Well, that's what they're,
Okay.
that's what
No,
they're
no,
getting
no.
themselves into.
So-
That's another issue.
That'll get you in trouble.
That's exactly right.
Any
So
other quiz
2 to
questions?
2.6?
I have a question that has
That makes
nothing
me
to
feel
do
a
with
lot
money.
better.
Okay.
This has a question that came up tonight with the residents. I think we ought to have, I'll say an Excel spreadsheet for lack of a better word, listing all ponds that we have, all 85 lakes, ponds, whatever you want to call them, and where they are in the continuum of they've been done, the money's been paid for, they're going to be done at the next time, whenever that is, or they haven't even been studied, but just something.
Yeah.
where you
About
have
2
one-
months ago, we had that discussion and Danny or Stephen came up with the remaining 30 ponds and had them broken down into complete 2 and then phase 3.
I've never seen that one that was
Yeah.
comprehensive.
But I agree with you. I think we need that. And then along with it, we need to take the perimeters of those ponds and try to apply a average dollar issue that we know. Figure out how much money we still got left to spend.
Oh, that's what I mean. And right now we're out of SRF and it's kind of like, well, we're just stop doing it, but that's.
SRF, I'm not worried about for one
Well,
thing.
but the
Those
point
boys
in
in Washington
SRF,
are going to take care of that. They're going to put $3 trillion in that. I'm not
we have
worried.
to draw to get as much as we can.
Okay.
But we ought to have a vision of all of it.
Anything else? Chris, anything from you?
Good job.
Okay.
Good job.
Nice work,
Good job.
everyone.
Good job.
In regards to the meeting, I just want to make sure.
Meet here at 3, then we go. We
No,
stay here?
we stay here. That's what I want to make sure. We
How
stay
we gonna get
here,
all these people in
overflow at Danny Grimes' office. And they'll have,
I
they'll
really
have
would much
video.
rather not rely on
If-
third party to.
I was thinking
I
a
don't know what
tent.
else we do.
I'd rather have it at the church or something.
Well, you wouldn't be able, yeah, you couldn't do it
How many
there.
people can we fit?
You couldn't move location.
Oh,
We've already advertised and noticed the location.
So we're
Yeah,
just,
so the only thing you could do is get a closed tent. When I say a closed tent with an AC, with the AC.
Well, the bigger thing I think will solve the problem. He gets that report, revised report, and the number is even close to what he announced a while ago.
Well-
You just diffuse the bomb.
well, and here's the thing too. I mean, you can be in attendance without physically having to be here. That's why we have the go-to meeting. So
Maybe two
people should not,
It'd be 2 people.
it shouldn't impact anyone not being able to get in this room because they can attend virtual.
Yeah, but you don't get the figure of Zoom.
And also, we have the overflow at Denny Grimes. That's for that, there for that reason.
All right, well, thanks, everyone. Nice work. I'll call the meeting adjourned at 5:18 if there's no more quizzes from Ed. We're all good. Okay.
Thank you.